Math, let's do this. Journey with me as we face, overcome, and befriend the challenges ahead. We can because we are Mathematiisin yan. I am Teacher Andrew, your soulmate. Allow me to guide you in learning the different concepts and skills in Mathematics 9. Our discussion today will center on solving word problems involving quadratic equations. Did I hear you say yay? Or you yelled yay? That sounded yikes. Nonetheless, let's get started. What about some warm-up exercises? Let us translate these verbal sentences into quadratic equations in standard form. We have sentence number 1. The length of a wooden frame is 1 foot longer than its width and its area is equal to 12 square feet. Sentence number 2. The square of a number plus 8 times the number is 20. The area of a rectangle whose length is 6 units less than twice its width is 36 square units is in sentence number 3. The sum of squares of 2 consecutive even numbers is 340 is verbal sentence number 4. Now, in sentence number 1, the length of a wooden frame is 1 foot longer than its width, and its area is equal to 12 square feet. Since the length and width are in feet and the area is in square feet, we may omit the units in representing the quantities. So the length is described in terms of its width and is specified to be 1 foot longer than its width. Hence the equation L equals W plus 1, where L is the length and W is the width. The area A of a rectangle is obtained by getting the product of its length L and width W. The area of the rectangle referred to in the problem is 12 square feet. This means that the product of the length and the width is 12. So, in terms of the width, the equation representing the area of the rectangle is W plus 1 times W equals 12. In standard form, this can be expressed as W squared plus W minus 12 equals 0. Let's record this in a table. In sentence number 2, the square of a number plus 8 times the number is 20. This is a number problem, so let's use the variable x to translate the sentence into an equation. The square of a number in symbols can be written as x squared. 8 times the number, the same number x in symbols can be written as 8x. So, the phrase the square of a number plus 8 times the number can be translated as x squared plus 8x. Is 20 is simply equals 20. Thus, the entire verbal sentence can be translated as x squared plus 8x equals 20. In standard form, this equation is rewritten as x squared plus 8x minus 20 equals 0. Let's record this in the table. Now in sentence number 3, the area of a rectangle whose length is 6 units less than twice its width is 36 square units. The rectangle's length L is described in terms of its width W, and it is specified to be 6 units less than twice the width. Hence the equation L equals 2W minus 6. The area of the rectangle is 36 square units. Therefore, the product of the length and the width of the rectangle is 36. The area then, in terms of the width, can be represented by the equation the binomial 2W minus 6 times W equals 36. And since the binomial 2W minus 6 times W equals 2W squared minus 6W, the equation then can be expressed in standard form as 2W squared minus 6W minus 36 equals 0. But wait, there's more. We can reduce the coefficients since 2, -6, and -36 are all divisible by 2. So, let's divide both sides of the equation by 2. The resulting equation is w squared minus 3w minus 18 equals 0. Let's record this in the table. Now in sentence number 4, the sum of squares of two consecutive even numbers is 340. The numbers involved here are two consecutive even numbers. How do we represent these? We let x be the smaller even number. Therefore, the next even number after x is x plus 2. The square of x is x squared. The square of the binomial x plus 2 is written as quantity x plus 2 squared. So, the sum of their squares can be represented by the polynomial x squared plus quantity x plus 2 squared. Since the result is specified to be 340, x squared plus the quantity x plus 2 squared must be equal to 340. Hence, the equation x squared plus the quantity x plus 2 squared equals 340. And since the quantity x plus 2 squared is equal to the trinomial x squared plus 4x plus 4, we can rewrite the equation as x squared plus x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 340 in standard form. It is written as 2x squared plus 4x minus 336 equals 0. Now, you might have noticed that the coefficients 2, 4, and negative 336 are all divisible by 2. So dividing both sides of the equation by 2 will produce the equation x squared plus 2x minus 168 equals 0. We must record this in the table. Now let's see the first verbal sentence again. We were able to translate this into the equation w squared plus w minus 12 equals 0, where the variable w represents the width of the wooden frame. Now, a question that is connected to this verbal sentence could be this: what are the dimensions of the wooden frame? This means we have to identify the length and the width of the wooden frame. So, solving the equation w squared plus w minus 12 equals 0 must give us the width. The equation can be solved by factoring. W squared plus w minus 12 is equal to the product of two binomials, namely w plus 4 and w minus 3. Hence the equation w plus 4 times the binomial w minus 3 equals 0. Equating each of these factors to 0, we must get the two values of w, which are negative 4 and 3. However, since w represents the width of the frame in feet, it can't be negative. Thus, w must be 3. The width of the wooden frame is 3 feet. Now, we determine the length of the frame. In the sentence, it is mentioned that the length is 1 foot longer than the width. In symbols, L equals w plus 1. And by substituting the obtained value of w in this equation, we must get that L is equal to 4. Hence, the length of the wooden frame is 4 feet. In the verbal sentence number 2, which we translated into the equation x squared plus 8x minus 20 equals 0, the question that could be asked is definitely, what is the number? And this we can answer by solving the quadratic equation x squared plus 8x minus 20 equals 0, since x here represents the number. And it so happens that this equation can also be solved by factoring. X squared plus 8x minus 20 is equal to the product of the binomials x plus 10 and x minus 2. Hence, we have the equation x plus 10 times the binomial x minus 2 equals 0. Equating each factor to 0, we must arrive at these values of x, negative 10 and 2. And since there are no indicated or implied restrictions for the value of x, both negative 10 and 2 are the answers to the question. Any doubt? Let's check by substituting these values of x in the equation x squared plus 8x minus 20 equals 0. So we have the square of negative 10 plus 8 times negative 10 minus 20. Is it equal to 0? Let's see. 100 minus 80 minus 20. Is it equal to 0? So we have 20 minus 20, and it is indeed equal to 0. So negative 10 is correct. We have, at this time, 2 squared plus 8 times 2 minus 20. Is the result equal to 0? Let's see. So we have 4 plus 16 minus 20. Is the result equal to 0? Next we have 20 minus 20. And this is of course equal to 0. So indeed, negative 10 and 2 satisfy the equation. This means that the square of negative 10 plus 8 times negative 10 must be equal to 20. The square of negative 10 is 100. 8 times negative 10 is negative 80. 100 plus negative 80 is 20. So, the equation is true, and hence, negative 10 is the number described in the problem. Now, the square of 2 plus 8 times 2 must also yield 20. The square of 2 is 4, and 8 times 2 is 16. 4 plus 16 is definitely equal to 20, so 2 is also the number described in the problem. Verbal sentence number 3. Just like verbal sentence number 1, it also involves area of a rectangle. It has been translated into the equation w squared minus 3w minus 18 equals 0. Now, what if the question we have to answer is this? What is the perimeter of the rectangle? The perimeter of rectangle is computed using this formula. B is equal to twice the sum of the length and the width, where B is the perimeter of the rectangle, L is its length, W is its width. So this implies we have to determine the length and the width of the rectangle. And we can do so by solving the equation w squared minus 3w minus 18 equals 0, where w represents the width. The trinomial w squared minus 3w minus 18 can be expressed as the product of the binomials w minus 6 and w plus 3, and the product should be equal to 0. And so, by equating each factor to 0, we must find that the values of w that satisfy the quadratic equation w squared minus 3w minus 18 equals 0 are 6 and negative 3. But the width can't be negative, so w must be 6. The width is 6 units. It is stated in the verbal sentence that the length is 6 less than twice the width. In symbols, L is equal to 2w minus 6. And by substituting the value of w in the equation, L must be equal to 6. The length is 6 units also. So this means that the rectangle mentioned in the situation is actually a square, since its length and width are the same. So, what is then the perimeter of this square? We just have to multiply the length or the width by 4. Hence, the perimeter is 24 units. Verbal sentence number 4, which is translated as x squared plus 2x minus 168 equals 0, could prompt us to find the numbers. Let's solve then the equation to determine what these numbers are. For 4 times in a row now, we would be solving the equation by factoring. Not that it can't be solved by other methods, but it is because factoring for me is the most convenient method to use. So, if you prefer completing the square or using the quadratic formula to solve, go ahead, live your life. So going back, the trinomial x squared plus 2x minus 168 can be expressed as the product of the binomials x plus 4 and x minus 12. And this, of course, is equal to 0. Now, if we equate each factor to 0, we must obtain the following values of x. We have negative 14 and 12. Recall that we have represented the two consecutive even numbers as x and x plus 2. This means that when x is negative 14, x plus 2 must be equal to negative 14 plus 2 or negative 12. Let's see if they satisfy the condition that the sum of the squares is 340. We have the square of negative 14 plus the square of negative 12. Is it equal to 340? 196 plus 144. Is the sum equal to 340? Yes, the sum is 340, so they are correct. Indeed, negative 14 and negative 12 are the numbers we are looking for. Now, when x is 12, x plus 2 must be equal to 12 plus 2 or 14. Do 12 and 14 also satisfy the condition? Let's see. 12 squared plus 14 squared, is it equal to 340? 144 plus 196, is it equal to 340? Yes, 340 is equal to itself, of course. And they also do. So there are two sets of answers in this problem. Negative 14, negative 12, and 12, 14. Let's have more examples of situations or word problems that can be represented by quadratic equations. The first of which is this. The height of a triangle is 4 inches, more than twice the length of the base. The area of the triangle is 35 square inches. Find the height of the triangle. Here, we need to recall the formula for the area of triangle. It is described by the equation a equals 1/2 base times height, or a equals base times height over 2, where a is of course the area of the triangle, b is the base, and h is the height. Since the base and the height are both in inches and the area is in square inches, we may not include any unit in expressing the given quantities and symbols. The area of the triangle is 35 square inches. It means that 1/2 the product of the base and the height, or when this product is divided by 2, the result is 35. The height is 4 inches, more than twice the length of the base. This can be translated into the equation h equals 2b plus 4. In terms of the base b, the area of the triangle, which is 35 square inches, can be described by this equation. Multiplying both sides of the equation by 2, the equation can be rewritten as b times the binomial 2b plus 4 equals 70. This just means that the product of the base and the height of the triangle is 70. Multiplying the quantities on the left side, the equation must be expressed as 2b squared plus 4b equals 70. Notice that 2, 4, and 70 are all divisible by 2. So, dividing both sides of the equation by 2 should produce the equation b squared plus 2b equals 35, which can be written in standard form as the equation b squared plus 2b minus 35 equals 0. And this equation can be solved also by factoring. Why? The leading coefficient, or the coefficient of b squared, is 1, the invisible 1. So, we must think of two numbers whose product is negative 35, the constant term in the trinomial, and whose sum is 2, the coefficient of the variable b in the linear term. And they are positive 7, or simply 7, and negative 5. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. 7 plus negative 5 is 2. 7 and negative 5 are the constant terms in the binomial factors of the trinomial b squared plus 2b minus 35, while the first terms are of course both b. Hence the equation b plus 7 multiplied by the binomial b minus 5 equals 0. When equated to 0, b plus 7 and b minus 5 will yield the values negative 7 and 5 respectively. B represents the base of the triangle, hence it must not be negative, so the base of the triangle is 5 inches. The height of the triangle is described by the equation h equals 2b plus 4. So by substitution, h must be equal to 2 times 5 plus 4, which is equal to 10 plus 4, and therefore h is 14. The height of the triangle is 14 inches. Problem solved! Next example. The length of the diagonal of a square measures 5 square root of 2 centimeters. What is the length of each side of the square? Recall that the square is a quadrilateral whose 4 sides are equal and whose 4 angles are 90-degree or right angles. A diagonal is a segment that connects 2 non-consecutive vertices of a polygon. In the problem, the diagonal of the square measures 5 square root of 2 centimeters, and we are to find the length of each side of the square. All sides of the square have the same length, so we can represent all of them using one variable, say s, which is also in centimeters. Since we are only given information about the diagonal of the square, nothing about its perimeter or area, we will solve the problem by treating it as a problem involving a right triangle. In the figure, we see that the diagonal divides the square into 2 congruent right triangles. Let's focus on just one. The diagonal of the square is the longest side of the right triangle, which is called the hypotenuse, and is 5 square root of 2 centimeters long. The 2 sides of the square are the shorter sides of the right triangle, which are called the legs, and are both represented by the variable s. Pythagorean theorem describes the relationship of the sides in a right triangle and is given by the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b represent the lengths of the legs, while c stands for the length of the hypotenuse. In the problem, the legs are both represented by the variable s since they are equal in length. Hence, a and b will be substituted by s. C will be replaced by 5 square root of 2. So we have the equation s squared plus s squared equals the square of 5 square root of 2. S squared plus s squared equals 2s squared, while the square of 5 square root of 2 must be equal to the product of 5 squared and the square of square root of 2. And this can be written as 25 times 2 and hence equals 50. Thus, the equation can be written as 2s squared equals 50, which is of the form ax squared equals k. We divide both sides of the equation by 2. The resulting equation is x squared equals 25. Then, we can now extract the square root of both sides. We should get s equals positive or negative 5. The variable s represents the length of each side of the square. Thus, it has to be positive, and so s must be equal to 5. The side length of the square is 5 centimeters. Problem solved! Kagamath, ready your pen and paper. It's Math the Moment! Problem number 1. A wire that is 32 centimeters long is cut into 2 pieces, and each piece is bent to form a square. The total area enclosed by the 2 squares is 34 square centimeters. Find the length of each piece of wire. For 45 seconds, go! Time is up! Since it is not indicated that the wire is cut into 2 pieces of equal length, we assume that one piece is longer than the other. So we let x be the length in centimeters of the shorter piece of wire, and the other piece must be 32 minus x centimeters long. We may not include the unit centimeters. Both pieces are bent to form a square. Hence, the length of each piece of wire is the same as the perimeter of the square it is bent into. So, getting 1/4 of the length of the piece of wire or dividing this length by 4, we must get the side length of the square the wire is bent into. Area of square is obtained by multiplying its side length by itself, or simply squaring the side length. For the shorter piece, the area of the square it is bent into must be equal to 1/16 of x squared or x squared over 16. For the longer piece, the area of the square it is bent into must be equal to 1/16 of the trinomial 1024 minus 64x plus x squared, or 1024 minus 64x plus x squared all over 16. Since the sum of the areas enclosed by the two squares is 34 square centimeters, we write this equation. We may multiply both sides of the equation by 16, and the resulting equation is x squared plus 1024 minus 64x plus x squared equals 544. Written in standard form, the equation must be expressed as 2x squared minus 64x plus 480 equals 0, and can be reduced as x squared minus 32x plus 240 equals 0 when both sides are divided by 2. And it can also be solved by factoring. X squared minus 32x plus 240 is equal to the product of the binomials x minus 12 and x minus 20. Hence the equation x minus 12 times the binomial x minus 20 equals 0. Equating each factor to 0, we can arrive at these values of x, 12 and 20. We let x be the length of the shorter piece, hence x must be 12. The shorter piece is 12 centimeters, while that of the longer piece must be obtained by subtracting 12 centimeters from 32 centimeters, in which the result is 20 centimeters, since its length is represented by the expression 32 minus x. Problem solved! Problem number 2. What must be the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle if the legs are 6 units and square root of 13 units long? For 30 seconds, let's do this. Time is up. Drawing the figure will help us visualize the problem better. The hypotenuse C is unknown. Let the leg A be 6 units long, while leg B is square root of 13 units long. Applying the Pythagorean theorem, we can arrive at the equation 6 squared plus the square of square root of 13 equals C squared. This means that C squared is equal to 36 plus 13, and hence C squared must be equal to 49. Extracting the square root of both sides, we must get that C is positive or negative 7. But C represents the length of the hypotenuse and therefore should not be negative. So C is equal to 7. The hypotenuse is 7 units long. Problem solved! Problem number 3. A 12 cm by 16 cm picture is mounted with border of uniform width on a rectangular frame. If the total area of the border is 288 square centimeters, what is the length of the frame? For 30 seconds, go! Time is up. Let x be the width in centimeters of the border of the frame. Hence, the width of the frame is equal to x plus 12 plus x, or 2x plus 12, which is equal to 2 times the binomial x plus 6. While the length in centimeters is equal to x plus 16 plus x, or equals 2x plus 16, and in factored form, 2 times the binomial x plus 8. Now, we must realize that the total area of the border plus the area of the picture is equal to the area of the rectangular frame. The area of the border, as stated in the problem, is 288 square centimeters. The area of the picture, as described by its dimensions, 12 centimeter by 16 centimeters, is 192 square centimeters. Hence, the area of the frame is equal to 288 square centimeters plus 192 square centimeters, which is 480 square centimeters. Since the length of the frame is given by the binomial x plus 8 times 2, while the width is expressed as 2 times the binomial x plus 6, this means that 2 times the binomial x plus 8 times 2 times the binomial x plus 6 is equal to 480. This can be expressed as 4 times the product of the binomials x plus 8 and x plus 6, which is equal to 480. Now, if we divide both sides by 4, it will result into the equation x plus 8 times the binomial x plus 6 equals 120. In standard form, it should be written as x squared plus 14x minus 72 equals 0. The trinomial x squared plus 14x minus 72 is equal to the product of the binomials x plus 18 and x minus 4. Hence, the equation x plus 18 times the binomial x minus 4 equals 0. Equating each factor to 0, the values of x are negative 18 and 4. X is the width in centimeters of the border of the frame. Hence, x must be 4. The width of the border is 4 centimeters. The length that is represented by the expression 2 times the binomial x plus 8 must be equal to 2 times the sum of 4 and 8. And this must be equal to 2 times 12, which is equal to 24. Thus, the length is 24 centimeters. Problem solved! And it has been another learning-packed episode, Kagamath. Before we go off air, be reminded that you don't have to be a genius for you to love math. We are mathematician yan. We all are. See you in our next journey. Bye!
De Luna,
Present!
Herrera,
Present!
Valera,
Present!
Handa ba tayo sa school year 2020?
Present!
Ngayong taon, ang edukasyon tuloy pa rin. Sa tulong ng DepEd, mga guro at mga magulang, ang handang isip, handa bukas. Tuloy-tuloy ang pag-aaral. May mga modules para sa iba't ibang antas. Sa government TV, maging sa radyo. Mahalagang ligtas ang ating mga estudyante at guro. Kaya kahit nasa bahay, tuloy ang edukasyon. Kung tulong-tulong, may paraan, may aralan.
Handang isip, handa bukas.
Bisitahin ang DepEd Philippines sa Facebook at ang deped.gov.ph.
Hello there, bright minds. It's nice to see you again. I hope you're having a delightful day. And yeah, we're here again, Sir DJ and Dan, your English learning buddies. We want to make sure that you will learn and we will enjoy our English lessons together. So make sure you have your pen and your paper with you, okay? Because once again, we will explore the wonders of this universal language. What are we waiting for? Let's get the fun started. Have you ever had a moment of reflection when you just sat down in a corner, looked at the rain-drenched window, played sad music, and thought about what would happen if things were different? Like, what if there were no pandemic? What would I be doing now? What would happen if I were born in a different country? Where would I be? If I were a TV actor, a rock star, how would my life be? What would happen if the moon disappeared? Oh man, that would be so scary. If I were 10 times richer, how would I spend the money? I'd definitely share it with you guys. Will you do the same for me? I sure hope so. I am sure a lot of thoughts are running through your mind right now. But the question is, how do you express them? How would you construct a sentence that would best express what you want to say? Sometimes we are caught in a moment where we know what we want to say, but the words seem to appear jumbled in our heads. It's as if they are just floating freely. How about I challenge you to a game like that? Let's play Words Will Float, You Will Quote. Words will appear floating around me, and then you'll try to write them down and arrange them to come up with a sentence that has a logical thought. I want you to write your answers down in your notebook. Can you do that? I'm sure you can. Ready? Let's go! Here's the first set of words. What could this sentence be? What is it trying to say? Write down your guess. The sentence is, if only I passed the test, I would celebrate and party. Did you get that? I'm sure you did. Or did you? Let's try the next one. What could this sentence be? I wonder. I see an if floating around. Oh, is that a wood over there? Where could that word be placed? Done. Our second sentence is, if I knew where she lived, I would go and see her. Good one. How are you doing so far? Keep up the good work. Now let's go to the last one. What could this sentence be? I see camera and photo. There is also brought which is the past tense of bring. Interesting. What are they trying to say? That's right. Our sentence is, I would take a photo if I brought my camera with me. You did very well in our game. Let's look at the sentences we came up with. If only I passed the test, I would celebrate and party. If I knew where she lived, I would go and see her. I would take a photo if I brought my camera with me. You're probably thinking, hey, these sentences look like conditionals. You are right. They actually are conditionals. However, I am sure some of you found it a little bit confusing to arrange these words correctly, right? How should we write sentences like those? Don't worry, we got you, fam. We'll help you. But before that, come on, let's have a recap of what we had last time. In the previous episode, we talked about conditionals. Can you still remember what conditionals are? Great! Conditionals are statements expressing the result of a particular condition. Do you remember how many clauses a conditional sentence has? That's right, we have two. The if clause and the main clause or the result clause. Wow, you're good. Now, how do we know if a conditional is a zero conditional? Correct again. A zero conditional is also called a factual conditional because it is used to express truths and facts, the things that are real and are existing around us. Also, a zero conditional expresses facts, habits, instructions, and rules. It can be written using the present simple verb in both the if clause and the result clause. What about the first conditional? Absolutely. The first conditional is also called a possible conditional since it is used in dealing with things that can possibly or are likely to happen in the future. But how do we form a first conditional? You nailed it! We can write a first conditional by using if or when, then we use the present simple in the if clause, and in the result clause, we will use the future tense, which is will plus the base form of the verb. You already have a habit of reading your notes well. Great job! Now that you already know how and when to use the zero in the first conditional, let's get started with this lesson. When do we use the second conditional? We use it in dealing with things that are impossible in the present and are also unlikely to occur in the future. Unlikely to become real in the future, but not completely impossible. We can use it when we want to imagine and to dream that the current situation is different from what it really is. For example, if I had enough money, I would buy a sports car. The point in this sentence is that I currently do not have enough money. But if I had enough money, this is what I would do. I would buy a sports car. The if clause gave a different situation compared to what it really is. I don't have enough money. Ouch. If only I passed the test, I would celebrate and party. Question: did the speaker pass the test? Right, he did not. It means that the current situation is different, and the unlikely outcome is that he would celebrate about it. But unfortunately, he won't. Remember, in writing a second conditional, the verb in the if clause should be written in the past simple, while in the result clause, it should be would plus the base form of the verb. If only he charged his phone, he wouldn't need to borrow yours. Keep in mind that you can make one or both clauses negative in second conditionals. if I didn't read my notes, I wouldn't get a good score. Never forget to read your notes. It'll definitely help you get good scores. Take it from me. We can use it to talk about things in the future that are probably not going to be true. Maybe imagining some dream, for example. If I met Catherine Bernardo, I would shake her hand. The chances of the if clause is slim. We can also use the second conditional to ask interesting hypothetical questions. Like, if you had the chance to meet your favorite K-pop idol, would you ask for a picture together? What would you do if you were a senator? If you only had one friend, who would it be? These questions are good conversation starters, right? A good conversation starter topic can make a normal conversation great. The second conditional can also be used to give advice. For example, if I were you, I'd practice my reading skills. I'd is a contraction of I would. If I were her, I would talk more politely. Speaking of being polite, have you ever had an experience when you wanted to say no to somebody, but you were looking for a nice way to say it, so you won't hurt him or her? The second conditional can really help you with that. Saying the word no alone seems to have a strong negative tone, right? So we want to try to soften our response by explaining why we can't do something. Check out this situation. Hey bro, we're going to have a party at my place. Do you want to join us? No. See how rude this statement can be? But if we use the second conditional, it would sound a little better. Hey bro, we're going to have a party at my place. Do you want to join us? If I weren't so busy with my homework, I would come to the party. But I'm really busy, so I can't, bro. See the difference? Being nice doesn't hurt. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Let's try to see how well you understand our discussion today. It's time for our fun activity. Let's play Complete the Conditional. For this one, I want you to fill in the blanks with the correct form of a verb to complete a second conditional sentence. This will be easy for you, my friends. Using your pen and paper, try to write down the correct sentences. Are you ready? Here we go! Number 1. If I blank you, I blank a new pen. What could be the answer for number 1? Write it down. If your answer is like this, then you got it right. If I were you, I would get a new pen. Number 2. If he blank younger, he blank more. I wonder what verb we should use. That's right. Check your answer. It goes like this. If he were younger, he would travel more. Well done. Let's try number 3. We blank a house if we blank to stay here. This one is different. The result clause was written first. How should we write this sentence? Did you get that right? Let's see. We would buy a house if we decided to stay here. Nicely done. Next, number 4. She blanked the exam if she blanked harder. It looks like it has the same format as number 3. How should this sentence be written? Check your answers. If it is like this, then it is correct. She would pass the exam if she studied harder. Very good, guys. What about this one? Number 5. she blank happier if she blank more friends. Remember the formula I have given you a while ago? That's great! She would be happier if she had more friends. How are you doing so far? Keep up the good work, guys. Next, number 6. If we blank the lottery, we blank those who are in need. What is your answer in this one? Great! If we won the lottery, we would help those who are in need. You're doing very well. Let's have the next one. Number 7. If she blank always late, she blank better scores. This one has a negative clause. How should we write this sentence? Correct. If she weren't always late, she would get better scores. You're getting really good at this. Moving on to number 8. They blank save more money if they blank so many shoes. If your answer is like this, then that is correct. They would save more money if they didn't buy so many shoes. Very good. Let's go to number 9. We blank to dinner if we blank time. Try to write your answers down. Good one. The answer is, we would come to dinner if we had time. Impressive. Let's go to the last one. Number 10. I blank you if I blank your number. I'm sure you get the knack of this by now. Here's the right answer. I would call you if I had your number. I'm so proud of you for answering very well. You really are amazing. Let's take a look at your answers. Number 1. If I were you, I would get a new pen. 2. If he were younger, he would travel more. 3. We would buy a house if we decided to stay here. For number 4, she would pass the exam if she studied harder. Number 5, she would be happier if she had more friends. 6, if we won the lottery, we would help those who are in need. For number 7, if she weren't always late, she would get better scores. Number 8, they would save more money if they didn't buy so many shoes. 9, we would come to dinner if we had time. And for number 10, I would call you if I had your number. Did you get a perfect score? I'm sure you did. You did very well in our lesson today. Just keep it up and I'm certain you'll be really good in using the English language in no time. To keep you busy and to practice your skills using the second conditional, try to write sentences about your dreams. Just as Gloria Steinem said, dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. Who knows? Your dreams may just come true one day. And that ends our episode today. That was awesome. Thank you for keeping up with us. We hope you had a fantastic time with us, your English learning buddies, Sir DJ and Dan. Stay tuned because in the next episode, we will talk about the last conditional. Exciting, huh? So keep safe, guys, and see you in the next one. Remember, never stop learning because life never stops teaching. Bye!
Abangan nato si Mamang. Mamang pa na mo lugar to na doon.
Sige, mas kayo. Wala. Kayo. Tara.
Mang, nagunsa rin ka, Mang.
Ay anak, nag-andam ko aning ato ang lugar nga atong tun-anan kada adlaw para sa mga assignments ninyo puhon.
Mang, unsaon din ni maling cartoon, Mang?
Kaning karton anak, ato ning sudlan sa mga materialis ninyo nga gamiton sa pag-answer sa mga assignment ug sa mga worksheets nga ihatod sa inyong mga maestra kada semana. Assignments ug worksheets.
Diyan na si Papa. Tabangan ka na mo.
Oh, sa mga
Sige,
tumbato ninyo na.
maayo, ingon anion.
Ah, sige.
Ma, nana si Ma!
Good morning! Nang Nerbing, magatod na po ko aning mga buluhaton o kansiranan sa atong mga bata.
Ma'am, salamat. Kaayo, ubay-ubay man di ay ni.
Balikan na ako karong Biyernes, ha? Salamat kayo, Ma! Ate, ate, saan din ni? Gabi?
Mga anak, abi ninyo, nalipay kay ko ninyo nga nagsudo nga nagsige mo tuon. Ipadayon ninyo inyong pagtuon kada adlaw ha, para sa maayo ninyong kaugmaon.
Tinuod yun na mga anak. Kay bisan adunay COVID-19, basta adunay tinuod nga pagtinabangay, wala na'y peligro o padayon ang atong pag-asenso.
A learning space is any area where learning can occur. It can be a corner, a room, or even a small table or just a box. What is important is that learning is possible despite the after effect of COVID-19. Together, we can make things possible.
We are one despite all challenges.
Together, we can make a difference!
Magandang araw Pilipinas! Panibagong araw at pagkakataon na naman ng pagkatuto, paglago at pagbabago sa tulong ng mga akdang pampanitikang tiyak na kawiwilihan ninyo. Samahan ninyo ang inyong kaibigang guro sa asignaturang Filipino, Ginoong Hamil Carbahan, dito sa nag-iisang DepEd TV. Tuklasin ang makulay at mayamang panitikan ng pinakamalaking kontinente sa daigdig, walang iba ang Asya. Kumapit at maghanda, tuloy-tuloy lamang tayo sa paglalakbay sa panitika ng Timog Silangang Asya. Sa nakalipas nating episode, isang bagong tauhan ng atin na namang nakilala. Si Andres Talon o mas kilala sa palayaw ni Andy sa nobelang Timawa ni Agustin C. Fabian. Kinakatawan ni Andy ang mga overseas Filipino worker o OFW na buong tapang na nakikipagsapalaran sa ibang mga bansa para makapagtamasa na magandang buhay ang kani-kanilang mga anak. Sa pinakahuling datos ng official website ng Philippine Overseas Employment Administration or POEA, higit sa 2 milyon na ang nade-deploy na ng ahensya sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Pinakamaraming bilang ng OFW ay matatagpuan sa gitnang silangan o Middle East na may kabuang bilang na 1,058,514. Hindi ito nalalayo sa estadistika ng Philippine Statistics Authority. Sa pinakahuli nilang datos, noong Abril hanggang Setyembre 2019, tinatayang 2.2 million na ang OFW na nade-deploy sa iba't ibang mga bansa. Mas maraming bilang ng kababaihan ang nangingibang bayan kaysa sa kalalakihan. Ang nangungunang mga bansa ng destinasyon ng ating OFW ay Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, at Taiwan. Sa mga nailatag nating impormasyon, nalaman nating maraming Andres Talon ang handang makipagsapalaran sa ibang bayan upang masiguro ang maayos sa pamumuhay ng kanilang pamilya. Nariyang titiisin nila ang pangungulila, ang mga araw na walang sapat na tulog at kain, ang pakikipaglaban sa kulungkutan, ang pakikisalamuha sa mga banyaga at bagong kapaligiran at kultura o norms, alang-alang sa matiwasay na pamumuhay ng mga taong umaasa at naniniwala sa kanila. Sagutin naman natin ngayon ang inyong takdang aralin tungkol pa rin sa akdang Timawa. Balikan natin ang mga tanong. Unang bilang, paano napadpad si Andres Talon sa Amerika? Ilarawan ang kanyang naging buhay rito. Naging lubusang ulila na si Andres sa kanyang ama noong siya'y 16 na taon. Sumama siya sa kanyang tsuhing isang kusinero ng bapor na naglalakbay sa Amerika at sa Pilipinas. Nakwento ni Andres na sanay siya sa paghuhugas ng mga pinggan, kubyertos at iba pang mga gamit sa pagluluto. Kagaya ni Andres, may ilan tayong mga kababayang sa murang edad ay sumasabak na agad sa ganitong klase ng mga hanap buhay dahil sa sila'y naulila sa kanilang mga magulang at piniling tumayo sa sariling mga paa para matustusan ang araw-araw na mga pangangailangan. Ikalawang tanong, bakit gayon na lamang ang paghanga ni Alice sa binata sa kalidad ng pagtatrabaho nito? Isa-isahin ang mga trabahong pinasukan ng binata sa Amerika. Una ngang naging hanap buhay ni Andres ay ang paghuhugas ng pinggan sa San Francisco at hindi niya rin ikinihiyang naging manggagawa rin siya sa iba't ibang bayan sa California. Ilan din sa kanyang karanasan ay tagapitas ng mansanas at dalandan sa Oregon, Washington at Florida. Pinasok niya rin ang industriya ng pagbebenta ng mga gulay at naging serbidor sa mga restoran. Pumasok din siya sa isang salimunan sa Alaska at nagpapatag din ng mga bato sa daang tren sa Nevada. Hindi ba kayo napagod sa inyong mga narinig na trabahong pinasok ni Andres? Pero wala tayong narinig na pagrereklamo sa mismong tauhan ng nobela. Kagaya ng marami sa atin, madiskarte at handang suunin ang maraming klase ng trabaho. Tatak na yata ng pagiging isang Pilipino ang pagiging masipag at mapamaraan. Katulad ka rin ba ni Andres? Ano-anong mabubuting katangian ni Andres ang taglay mo rin? Ikatlo, makatwirang bang pagwikaan ng masama o tawaging timawa ng donya ang mga taong nanunulungan at kumain sa handaan? Bakit? At paano nakaapekto sa katauhan ni Andres ang mga katagang binitawan ng donya na sila raw ay lubha pang masahol sa timawa? Hindi ang mga karanasan ni Andres sa Amerika ang nagpabago sa kanyang buhay. May isang namumukod tanging sugat sa kanyang nakaraan ang lagit-lagi naaalala niya at ang pagsubok na nagpatatag sa kanya. Nakwento niya ngang minsang nagpunta sila ng kanyang ama noong siya'y 13 taong gulang pa lamang sa isang pistang handaan ay ininsulto sila ng isang donya. Hindi pa raw natatapos kumain ng mga panauhin sa itaas ay inuuna na raw namin ang aming bituka. Lubha raw kaming mga timawa. At tinawag nga silang timawa o mga patay gutom. Hindi pa lubos na nauunawaan ni Andres ang salitang iyon hanggang sa makauwi sila mula sa handaan at pinangaralan ng kanyang nasirang ama. Sinabi sa akin ni ama na pagbutihin ko ang aking pag-aaral upang huwag kong sapitin ang kaapihang ganoon. Kung ako raw ay lalaking magsasaka at hindi akin ang sasakahing lupa, ganoon din ang aking kapalaran. Aalimurain ng mayaman. Ang isang timawa raw, kahalintulad ng isang aso. Sagpang ng sagpang. Doon siya hinikayat ng kanyang ama na maging masipag at pagbutihin ng pag-aaral upang hindi sapitin ang ganoong panghahamak, pangiinsulto at kaapihan. Marami sa atin ang dumaranas ng tinatawag na diskriminasyon o ang hindi magandang pakikitungo batay sa hindi matuwid na palagay ukol sa lahi, kulay, edad, kasarian, at estado sa buhay ng isang tao. Sa halip na damdamin ni Andres ang ganitong panghahamak, nagsilbi niya itong inspirasyon at hamon sa sarili para makaalis at makaalagwa sa hirap na kanilang dinaranas. Ito naman talaga ang orihinal na kahulugan ng timawa. Nabanggit natin sa nakaraang episode na ang kahulugan ng timawa ay mga taong nahango mula sa pagkakaalipin. Ika-4, masasalamin ba sa katauhan ni Andres ang taong may matibay na paninindigan sa sarili para maabot ang kanyang mga pangarap? Patunayan. Walang duda, pilit na bumangon si Andres sa hindi magagandang karanasan sa kanyang buhay. Sa kabila ng dinanas silang panghahamak ng kanyang ama mula sa isang mayamang kababayan, sa kanyang pagkaulila sa kanyang pinakamamahal na ama, hanggang sa pakikipagsapalaran niya sa Amerika, totoong kinaya ni Andres ang mga balakid na ito at nagpatuloy lamang sa buhay. Nais niya pa rin tuparin ang pangarap ng kanyang ama na maging isang matagumpay na doktor. Naway tularan natin si Andres sa kanyang katapangan sa pagharap ng mga hamon sa ating mga buhay. Bagaman ang binasang akda ay piksyon, hindi natin maipagkakailang pamilyar sa atin ang ilang mga pangyayari sa buhay ni Andres Talon sa makatotohanang karanasan ng bawat Pilipino, lalong-lalo na ng mga naulila, may hirap at kwento ng mga nangingibang bayan. Sa mga kathang prosa gaya ng maikling kwento at nobela, na bagaman katang-isip, mahalagang maging gabay sa pagsulat ng mga ito ang paggamit ng mga pahayag na nagsasaad ng katotohanan at opinyon. Ito ay para mas maging kapanapanabik, kapanipaniwala at kahika-hikayat ang mga tagpo at pangyayari sa ating binabasang akda. Ngunit, paano nga ba natin makikilala kung ang pahayag ay isang katotohanan o opinyon? Ang katotohanan ay isang pahayag na nagsasaad ng ideya o pangyayaring napatunayan at tanggap ng lahat na totoo at hindi mapasusubalian kahit sa ibang lugar. Hindi ito nagbabago at maaaring tiyakin ang pagkamakatotohanan nito sa ibang sanggunian tulad ng mga babasahin at mga taong nakasaksi nito. Ang opinyon naman ay isang pananaw ng isang tao o pangkat na maaaring totoo pero pwedeng pasubalian ng iba. Ito rin ay isang paniniwalang mas malakas pa sa impresyon, ngunit mas mahina sa positibong kaalaman na batay sa obserbasyon at eksperimento. Sa madaling salita, ang katotohanan ay mga pahayag na maaaring mapatunayan ng mga ebidensya, samantalang ang opinyon ay mga pahayag na batay sa sariling paniniwala lamang. Ngunit, tandaan na bagamat ito'y isang paniniwala o punto ng sumulat lamang, mainam na ang paghahabi ng opinyon ay nakasalig sa kanyang karanasan at o mga nabasang prinsipyo o kaisipan. Sa katotohanan, maaaring gamitin ang mga katagang batay sa datos ng pinatutunayan ni, mula kay, sang-ayon sa, tinutukoy na, mababasa sa estadistikang inilatag na, at marami pang iba. Matatandaang sa pag-uumpisa ng ating programa kanina, gumamit tayo ng makatotohanang mga pahayag. Halina't saglit nating balikan. Sa pinakahuling datos ng official website ng Philippine Overseas Employment Administration or POEA, higit sa 2 milyon na ang nade-deploy na ng ahensya sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Pinakamaraming bilang ng OFW ay matatagpuan sa gitnang silangan o Middle East na may kabuang bilang ng 1,058,540. Hindi ito nalalayo sa estadistika ng Philippine Statistics Authority. Sa pinakahuli nilang datos, noong Abril hanggang Setyembre 2019, tinatayang 2.2 million na ang OFW na nade-deploy sa iba't ibang mga bansa. Mas maraming bilang ng kababaihan ang nangingibang bayan kaysa sa kalalakihan. Ang nangungunang mga bansa ng destinasyon ng ating OFW ay Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, at Taiwan. Nakita ninyo? Madaling matukoy ang mga pahayag na nagsasaad ng katotohanan. Bukod sa gumamit tayo ng mga katagang nakasandig sa mga totoong datos gaya ng pinakahuling datos ng at sa estadistika ng, tahasan nating binanggit ang mga totoo at bagong impormasyon na galing sa mapagkakatiwalaang mga sanggunian o source. Sa pagsulat o pagkatha ng mga akdang piksyon, importante ang mga pahayag na nagsasaad ng katotohanan. Ipinahihiwatig ng mga katagang ito ang mga tunay na paglalarawan sa tagpuan o ang pook, panahon at atmosphere ng isang salaysay para mas maging kapani-paniwala ang mga gagamiting tagpo sa mga prosa gaya ng maikling kwento at nobela. Nagagawa ng mga pahayag na ito na maging epektibo ang ating mga pagsasalaysay. Samantala, sa pahayag na nagsasaad ng opinyon, napakahalagang may sapat tayong kaalaman o totoong mga karanasan sa paksang pinag-uusapan upang masusing mapagtimbang-timbang ang mga bagay-bagay at maging katanggap-tanggap ang ating mga opinyon. Tandaan, ang isang mabuting opinyon ay may pinangahawakang balidasyon. Hindi ito purong kuro-kuro lamang. Kung may matatag kang opinyon, maaari mong gamitin ang mga pahayag gaya na buong igting kong sinusuportahan ang, kumbinsido akong, labis akong naninindigang, lubos kong pinaniniwalaan ang. Samantala sa mga neutral na opinyon, maaari nating gamitin ang mga pahayag. Gaya na, kung ako ang tatanungin, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, sa aking pagsusuri, sa aking palagay, sa aking pananaw, sa ganang sarili, sa tingin ko, sa totoo lang. Napag-uusapan din lang ang katotohanan at opinyon sa ika-21 siglo, malaganap na natin itong nakikita, naririnig at nababasa. Lalo pa ngayon sa panahon ng teknolohiya at social media. Tayo ngang mga netizen ay pinag-iingat sa tinatawag na fake news. Isa ang fake news sa mga nominadong salita ng taon noong 2018. Ang definisyon nito, kasinungalingan o mapanlinlang na impormasyong kinokopya ang format ng balita. Ito rin ang tawag ng mga tao sa tunay na balitang hindi nila gusto. Paano nga ba tayo makakaiwas sa mapanlinlang na mga impormasyon o fake news? Isa sa tips para makaiwas sa misinformation at disinformation ay ang pagtingin sa mga lehitimong sanggunian. Tingnan natin kung ito ay napapanahon at huwag basta-basta magpapadala sa maling mga impormasyon. Siguruhin lagit-lagi kung ito ay autentikong mga media platforms. Sa paghahayag naman ng saloobin sa social media, hinay-hinay lang. Gaya ng ipinaalala ng ating araling ngayon, lagi dapat tayong nakasandig sa mga totoong datos at tunay na karanasan upang suportahan ang ating mga argumento. Huwag tayong magpapadala sa bugso ng ating mga damdamin at isaalang-alang ang pagiging rasyonal at lohikal sa pagbibitaw ng mga saloobin. Higit sa lahat, maging responsable sa paghahayag ng ating mga gustong sabihin. Tandaan, ang mga katagang pinag-iisipan ang siyang tunay na may katuturan. Hanggang sa susunod nating pagkikita, Muli ang inyong kaibigang guro, Ginoong Hamil Q. Carvajal. Magbasa, magsulat, makinig at maghayag dahil sa Pilipino at panitikang Asyano, ang karunungan ay patuloy na maglalayag.
Isang mapanuring araw mga mag-aaral ng grade 10, maligayang pagdating sa Araling Panlipunan para sa makabagong silid-aralan. Ako si Ma'am Che, ang teacher analyst na magiging gabay ninyo sa pagsusuri ng mga issue at pangyayari sa lipunang ating ginagalawan. Dito sa Araling Panlipunan 10, kayo ay magiging mulat, mapanuri at may paninindigang kabataang Pilipino. Kaya ihanda na ang inyong mga learning modules, papel at ballpen para simulan ang ating makabuluhang talakayan. Bago tayo magsimula sa panibagong yugto ng ating pagkatuto sa ating aralin, ay mainam na balikan natin ang mga tinalakay natin noong nakaraang episode. Gagawin natin ito sa pamamagitan ng isang maikling pagsasanay. Kaya't ihanda ang ating sarili at talasan ang ating isipan. Nakahanda ka na ba? Halina at ating simulan. Sa nakaraang episode ay tinalakay natin ang konsepto ng climate change. Kung maaalala natin, ang climate change ay tumutukoy sa pagbabago ng klima sa ating mundo. Ayon sa Climate Change at Pagpapalayan 2014, Ito ay ang abnormal na pagbabago ng klima tulad ng pag-init at paglamig ng temperatura at tuloy-tuloy at malakas na pag-ulan sa isang lugar. Para mas malinang natin ang pagbabalik-aral sa ating tinalakay sa konsepto ng climate change, ay gagawin natin ito sa gawaing tatawagin nating D or E. Ang gagawin lamang ninyo ay itataas ang inyong kamay na may sign language ng letrang D kung sa tingin ninyo ito ay dahilan ng climate change. At ang sign language ng letrang E kung ito naman ay patungkol sa epekto ng climate change. Handa na ba kayo? Simulan na natin. Unang pahayag. Paggamit ng mga fossil fuels gaya ng langis at coal. Kung ang inyong kasagutan ay D o dahilan, ang inyong sagot ay tumpak. Sa nakaraan nating talakayan, ang paggamit ng fossil fuels gaya ng langis at coal ay isa lamang sa mga dahilan ng climate change. Ang init na nagmumula sa paggamit ng mga ito ay nakadaragdag sa pag-init ng ating mundo. Ito ang nagiging dahilan upang makulong ang mga greenhouse gases na maaaring magdulot ng climate change. Naaalala niyo ba si Greta Thunberg na tinalakay natin noong nakaraang episode? Noong inanyayahan siya sa TEDx Stockholm noong nakaraang taon, sinabi niyang alam naman di umano ng mga tao na nakasasama ang pagsusunog ng mga fossil fuels, pero bakit walang restriksyon? Bakit hindi ito ginagawang iligal? At isa sa mga naging panawagan niya noong mga oras na yon sa mga nakikinig, lalo na sa mga pinuno ng pamahalaan, simulan na ang pagbabawas ng anumang uri ng pagbubuga ng iba't ibang sektor at industriya na nakasisira sa ating kapaligiran. Ang climate change ay isang issue na nangangailangan ng agarang pagtugon mula sa mga pinuno ng iba't ibang bansa. Ikalawang pahayag, pagkakaroon ng mga sakuna tulad ng baha, malalakas na bagyo, heatwave at tagtuyot. Kung ang inyong kasagutan ay E o epekto, ang inyong sagot ay tumpak. Ang mga sakuna tulad ng heatwave o sobra-sobrang init, baha, malalakas na bagyo at tagtuyot ay mga epekto ng climate change na maaaring makagambala sa pamumuhay ng mga tao. Ikatlong pahayag, pagkasira ng mga komunidad dulot ng mga kalamidad. Kung ang inyong kasagutan ay E o epekto, ang inyong sagot ay tama. Kaya isang suliraning pangkapaligiran ang climate change dahil hindi lamang iilan ang naaapektuhan nito, pati na rin ang mga tao sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Base sa ginawa nating pagbabalik-aral, ay batid ko nang alam na ninyo ang konsepto ng climate change at ang iba't ibang dahilan at epekto nito sa ating komunidad. Ang Pilipinas ay isa sa mga nangungunang bansa sa mundo na labis na naaapektuhan ng climate change. Sa episode na ito, gagawin natin ang isang talakayan na magpapalalim at magpapaunlad sa inyong mga kaalaman ukol sa mga suliraning pangkapaligiran ng nagdaang episodes. Sa puntong ito ay ihanda na ninyo ang inyong mga panulat at sagutang papel para sa isang talakayan na tatawagin nating ang responsableng mamamayan. Bago natin simulan ang ating gawain, ay magsulat ng bilang 1 hanggang 10 sa inyong sagutang papel. Mayroon akong mga babanggiting mga sitwasyon o pangyayari. Pagkatapos kong ilahad ang bawat sitwasyon, ay isusulat ninyo ang mga salitang, "Ako ay responsable." Kung sa tingin ninyo ay ginagawa ninyo ang mga nasabing mga sitwasyon o pangyayari, at isulat naman ang hindi kung ito ay hindi ninyo ginagawa. Handa na ba kayo? Para sa unang bilang, ako ay responsableng mamamayan dahil tumutulong ako sa paghihiwalay ng basura tulad ng biodegradable, non-biodegradable at recyclables, at ako ang nagpapanatili ng kalinisan sa aming tahanan at kapaligiran. Kung ang kasagutan mo ay ako ay responsable, magaling. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay sumusunod ka at ang iyong pamilya hindi lamang dahil mayroong batas na nagbabawal sa hindi responsableng pagtatapon ng basura, kundi dahil mas pinahahalagan mo ang ating kapaligiran maging ang ating kalusugan. Kung aalalahanin ay tinalakay natin ang Republic Act 9003 o kilala bilang Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. Nakasaad sa batas na ito ang mga alituntunin sa wastong pamamahala ng basura at pagpapatupad ng mga programang nakatuon sa pakikiisa ng bawat mamamayan upang mabawasan ang basurang itinatapon. Tinalakay din natin na ang hindi wastong pagtatapon ng basura ay maaaring magdulot ng sakit. Taon-taon ay may naiulat na mga balita tungkol sa pagkakasakit ng ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na ang sakit na dengue dahil sa maruming kapaligiran at hindi wastong pagsasaayos ng ating mga basura. Ang mga basurang itinatapon kung saan-saan lamang ay maaaring bumara sa mga kanal at estero na nagdudulot ng pag-imbak ng mga tubig na pwedeng pamahaya ng mga lamok na maaaring magdulot ng sakit na dengue. Hindi lamang dengue ang maaaring makuha sa maduming kapaligiran. Nandyan din ang leptospirosis mula sa dumi at ihi ng daga, mga sakit sa balat, kolera at iba pa. Ngayon ay magtungo tayo sa pangalawang bilang. Ako ay responsableng mamamayan dahil ang mga basurang hindi nabubulok sa aming kabahayan ay hindi namin sinusunog bagkus ay dinadala namin sa MRF o Material Recovery Facility ng aming barangay. Kung ang kasagutan mo ay ako ay responsable, mahusay. Ito ay patunay na pinahahalagahan ninyo ang kalinisan at pangangalaga sa ating kapaligiran. Sa nakaraan nating talakayan ay nabanggit natin na sa ilalim ng Republic Act 9003, ang pagsusunog ng basura ay mahigpit na ipinagbabawal at dapat may MRF sa bawat barangay upang maisaayos ang mga basurang nakokolekta sa mga kabahayan. Ayon sa isang artikulong inilathala sa website ng Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, ang mga basura katulad ng plastic na ating sinusunog ay nagtataglay ng CFC o chlorofluorocarbon na nakakasama sa kapaligiran lalong-lalo na sa ozone layer ng mundo. Ang ozone layer ang nagsisilbing proteksyon ng mundo laban sa ultraviolet rays ng araw. Kung masisira ang ozone layer, napakalaki ng tsansa na magdulot ito ng epekto sa buhay ng mga tao, lalong-lalo na ang pagkakaroon ng skin cancer, pagkasira ng mga likas na yaman sa ibabaw ng lupa at ilalim ng tubig, at mga yamang nabubuhay dito. Dagdag pa sa artikulong inilathala, ang CFC na mula sa mga sinunog na basura ay nakadaragdag sa pag-init ng mundo na nagdudulot ng tinatawag nating climate change. Kaya't napakahalaga bilang isang mag-aaral na sa ating mga tahanan pa lamang ay maging responsable na tayo sa mga bagay na ating mga ginagawa. Ngayon ay magtungo tayo sa ikatlong bilang. Ako ay responsableng individual dahil ginagamit ko ang social media upang mapalaganap ang advokasya para sa malinis na komunidad at responsableng pagtatapon ng basura. Kung ang kasagutan mo ay ako ay responsable, magaling. Dahil sa pagkakaroon ng pandemya sa kasalukuyan, mas nabibigyan natin ng panahon ang paggamit ng ating mga social media accounts. Kaya napakahalaga na habang ginagamit natin ang mga ito, ay nagpapalaganap din natin ang mga makabuluhang advokasya lalong-lalo na sa mga kapwa kabataan natin sa kasalukuyan. Diba't isa sa mga core values ng DepEd ay makakalikasan? Kaya bilang mag-aaral, dapat nakikibahagi din tayo sa mga programang may kinalaman dito. Kamakailan ay naiulat at naging trending ang mga balita ukol sa pagbabawal ng DENR ng pagkuha ng mga halaman sa kagubatan na ibinibenta at pinagkakakitaan. Ang mga halamang ito ang siyang pinagmumula ng oxygen na nilalanghap natin. Kung masisira ang mga ito, ay malaki ang magiging epekto nito sa bawat isa. Bilang isang responsableng individual, Dapat nakikibahagi tayo sa mga advokasya na protektahan ang ating likas na yaman gamit ang social media. Para naman sa ika-4 na bilang, ako ay responsableng mamamayan dahil nire-recycle ko ang mga basura katulad ng mga papel o dyaryo bilang isang panibagong bagay o produkto. Kung ang ika-4 na bilang ay iyong ginagawa, magaling. May mga bagay na sa unang tingin natin ay mga ordinaryo lamang, ngunit malaki pala ang halaga nito sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay. Alam niyo ba kung saan galing ang mga papel na ginagamit natin ngayon? Maging ang sagutang papel mo ngayon? Ang ginagamit mong self-learning module. Ang mga yan ay mula sa mga punong kahoy na mula sa ating kapaligiran. Ito ay pinoproseso ng maigi upang maging papel na ating ginagamit. Sa ating nakaraang talakayan, ang mga punong kahoy ay mahalaga sapagkat hindi lamang dito nagmumula ang mga bagay katulad ng papel, kagamitan sa bahay, o maging ang ating bahay na tinitirhan. Ito rin ay nagsisilbing baga o lungs ng ating mundo. Ang kagubatan din ay nakatutulong upang maiwasan ang pagguho ng lupa at nagsisilbing proteksyon sa mga watersheds. Bukod sa mga ito, nakatutulong din ang mga kagubatan upang mabalanse ang kapaligiran at maiwasan ang climate change. Kaya dapat na matuto tayong magresiklo ng mga bagay at kagamitan. Para sa ika-5 bilang, ako ay isang responsableng mamamayan dahil ako ay nakikilahok sa mga gawaing pansibiko ng aming komunidad, lalong-lalo na sa paglilinis ng mga estero at kanal, maging ang pagtatanim ng punong kahoy o reforestation project. Kung ang kasagutan mo ay ako ay responsable, magaling! Sa puntong ito ay batid ko na isa kang responsableng mamamayan dahil hindi lamang pantahanan ang nagiging saklaw ng iyong mga advokasya o hindi lamang sa mga shares at likes ng iyong social media accounts. Ngunit ikaw din ay nakikilahok sa gawain na maaaring magmulat sa iyo sa isang panibagong pagkatuto na siyang magiging susi sa iyong tagumpay. Ang pagkaubos o pagkasira ng kagubatan ay may malaking epekto hindi lamang sa forest ecosystem, kundi pati na rin sa iba pang ecosystem na may kaugnayan dito. Dahil sa pagsira ng mga kagubatan, naging mas madalas ang mga pagbaha at pagguho ng mga bundok. Kaya nga, ang pakikilahok sa iba't ibang programa sa ating komunidad, katulad ng kalinisan at reforestation, ay mga hakbang upang mapangalagaan ang ating likas na yaman. Para sa ika-6 na katanungan, ako ay responsableng mamamayan dahil kapag namamasyal ako sa mga parke, ay itinatapon ko ng maayos ang aking basura. Kung ang iyong kasagutan ay ako ay responsable, mahusay. Sinasalamin ito na mayroon kang pagpapahalaga at mabuting pananaw para sa ating kapaligiran. Sa mga nakalipas nating episodes ay tinalakay natin na ang pinakamalaking uri ng itinatapong basura ay ang tinatawag na biodegradable. Kaya sa isang komunidad, isang napakalaking bagay kung magiging epektibo ang pagpapatupad ng waste management o wastong pagkuha, paglilipat, pagtatapon o paggamit at pagsubaybay ng basura ng mga tao. Kagaya ng isang proyekto ng DENR kung saan ay gumawa sila ng mga trash traps upang masala ang mga basurang naaanod sa mga ilog papuntang Manila Bay. Para sa ika-7 bilang, ako ay isang responsableng mamamayan dahil ginagamit ko ang aking kaalaman upang maipaalam sa aking kapwa mag-aaral, kaibigan at pamilya ang masamang dulot ng mga gawain na nakakasira sa ating likas na yaman. Kung ang kasagutan mo sa bilang na ito ay ako ay responsable, magaling! Dito ay batid ko na hindi mo lamang ginagamit ang iyong kaalaman para sa iyong sariling kapakanan, Pagkos ay ginagamit mo ito upang maging inspirasyon sa iyong kapwa. Isang kahanga-hangang kakayahan na maipabatid sa ating kapwa ang mga suliraning nararanasan natin sa kasalukuyan, katulad ng suliranin sa solid waste, pagkasira ng likas na yaman at climate change. Para sa ikawalong pahayag, ako ay isang responsableng mamamayan dahil pinapatay ko ang ilaw at mga appliances sa aming bahay kung hindi naman ito ginagamit. Kung ang kasagutan mo sa bilang na ito ay ako ay responsable, magaling. Ang mga ilaw at mga kasangkapan natin sa ating bahay ay mga gamit na nagtataglay ng CFC o chlorofluorocarbon. Katulad ng refrigerator or air conditioner na habang ginagamit natin ay naglalabas ng CFC na maaaring makadagdag o magpalala sa climate change. Tuwing huling Sabado ng Marso ay dinaraos ang tinatawag na Earth Hour kung saan pinapatay natin ang ating mga ilaw at appliances ng ilang oras bilang pakikiisa sa pagtugon laban sa climate change. Nakikibahagi ka ba at ang iyong pamilya dito? Noong ika-28 ng Marso, isinagawa ang Earth Hour 2020 na nilahukan ng milyong-milyong tao mula sa 170 bansa. Nilahukan ito ng mga kilalang personalidad katulad ni Greta Thunberg, Pope Francis at UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Ito ay malawakang panawagan patungkol sa climate change. Para naman sa ika-9 na pahayag, ako ay isang responsableng individual dahil ako ay sumusunod sa mga batas na may kinalaman sa pangangalaga sa kapaligiran. Kung ang kasagutan mo naman sa ika-9 na bilang ay ako ay responsable, magaling. Ibig sabihin nito ay isa kang responsableng mag-aaral at individual ng ating bansa. Ang isang taong katulad mo ang kailangan ng ating bansa upang magtagumpay sa kahit na anumang pagsubok na kinakaharap natin na may kinalaman sa mga isyung pangkapaligiran. Para sa huling pahayag, ako ay isang responsableng mamamayan dahil nakikibahagi ako sa positibong talakayan sa social media ukol sa pagpoprotekta sa ating kapaligiran. Kung ang kasagutan para sa ating huling bilang ay ako ay responsable, napakagaling at pinabati kita. Bilang isang mag-aaral at kabataan ng bagong henerasyon, nararapat lamang na mulat kayo at responsable sa mga nakikita ninyo sa social media, lalong-lalo na ang mga talakayan ukol sa mga isyong may kinalaman sa ating kapaligiran. Nararapat na nasuri at pinatutunayan ng datos ang mga ibibigay nating mga saloobin upang maging makabuluhan ang mga ginagamit nating mga social media platforms sa pagpapalalim ng usapin na may kinalaman sa pangangalaga ng ating kapaligiran. Ngayon naman ay suriin natin ang mga naging kasagutan sa ating naging gawain. Ilan kaya sa mga bilang na yan ang sa tingin mo, ikaw ay naging responsable? Kung ang kasagutan mo ay halos lahat ng bilang ay ako ay responsable, binabati kita. Ito ay nangangahulugan na ikaw ay may malaki ng naiambag sa pagpapabuti ng ating kapaligiran. Ipagpatuloy mo ang iyong nasimulan. Kung kaunti naman o wala kang kasagutan na ikaw ay responsable sa kahit na anumang bilang ng ating gawain, huwag kang mag-alala. Ang gawain ito ay magbibigay sa iyo ng hamon upang simulan mo ang iyong paglalakbay patungo sa pagiging isang responsableng mamamayan. Kaya huwag kayong mawawala sa ating mga susunod na episodes dahil ako ang inyong magiging gabay sa pagtupad ng inyong mithiin upang kayo ay maging responsable at mapagtugong mamamayan. Para sa inyong takdang aralin, gumawa ng infographic patungkol sa pangangalaga sa ating kapaligiran at i-post ito sa inyong social media account upang magsilbing paalala sa iyo na laging maging responsableng mamamayan. Bilang isang mapanuring mag-aaral, individual at mamamayan, mahalaga na maging mulat tayo sa mga pangyayaring may kaugnayan sa atin bilang mga Pilipino. Naway magsilbing gabay ang ating mga tinalakay upang mas pag-igihin pa ninyo ang pagmamahal sa ating inang kalikasan. Laging tandaan, mga mulat at mapanuring kabataan na sa kanilang tungkulin ay tumutugon, dulot ay transformasyon sa bawat individual at nasyon. Magkita-kita tayong muli sa mga susunod nating episodes dito sa DepEd TV, pakikinggan ang boses ng kabataang Pilipino sa pagtalakay ng iba't ibang kontemporaryong issue.
Sasamahan kita kahit isang eroplano ang agwat nating dalawa. Dahil kung nakakapagsalita lamang ang paliparan, ikukwento niya kung ilang beses akong lumingon pabalik sa'yo nung araw na ako'y lumisan. Papalubog ang araw noon at dahan-dahan lumulubog din ang puso ko sa kalungkutan. Ayaw sana kitang iwan. Gusto kitang samahan. Sa mga umagang nagmamadali ka papasok sa eskwela. Gusto kitang damayan sa mga gabing nahihirapan ka sa matematika. Gusto kitang yakapin sa tuwing gusto mo nang sumuko dahil akala mo'y wala kang talento sa pagpinta. Ngunit anak, gusto kong ipaalam sa'yo na ikaw ang nagpinta ng buhay ko. Nang dumating ka, naging makulay ang mundo ko. Ang dating mga baluktot na linya ay naging tuwid. Ang dating madilim na larawan ay nabigyan ng liwanag. Kaya anak, gusto pa rin kitang samahan sa bawat mong karanasan, sa mga tagumpay at kabiguan. Sasamahan kita hanggang marating mo ang mga ulap, hanggang maabot mo ang iyong mga pangarap.
Hello, Ma?
Hello, anak. Sorry, kakatapos lang ng trabaho ni Mama.
Okay lang po, Ma. Kakatapos lang din naman po namin maglaro.
Mukhang nandun ka ulit sa paborito mong lugar, ah. O sige, ready ka na ba? Punta ka na sa DepEd Commons. Math tayo ngayon, ha?
Anak, sasamahan kita. Kahit isang eroplano ang agwat nating dalawa.
Hi, good day. Welcome in today's episode of DepEd TV. I am Sir Jason Flores Oso, your math buddy, and I will be here to help you in developing your logical reasoning and critical thinking skills. Is your self-learning module ready? What about your pen and paper? Great! Let's begin a fun and exciting lesson. For this lesson, you are expected to determine a geometric sequence, identify the common ratio of a geometric sequence, find the missing term of a geometric sequence, determine whether a sequence is geometric or arithmetic, and explain inductively the difference between arithmetic sequence and geometric sequence using real-life situations. Arithmetic sequences were presented to you in the previous episodes using real-life situations. In this episode, we will determine a geometric sequence and differentiate it from an arithmetic sequence. Have you ever wondered how plants grow? In your Facebook account, how would you know how many likers or reactors will you have in a couple of minutes if a certain pattern is observed? When saving your money in the bank, have you realized how much will it increase monthly, quarterly, or yearly? These are just but situations that will help you arrange or organize things accurately and make wise decisions. Well, let's take the challenge by answering the first problem. You are planning to buy a new blouse which costs 300 pesos as a present to your mother this Christmas season. You started saving money on the first week of November and doubled the amount to be saved every week. If you started saving 5 pesos on the first week, will you be able to buy the blouse at the end of the second week of December? To solve the problem, you must have to analyze accurately the given situation. To help us understand the problem easier, let's present the given in tabular form. There are 6 weeks from the first week of November up to the second week of December. The initial amount saved is 5 pesos, while your target amount at the end of the second week of December is 300 pesos. The amount to be saved is doubled every week. Since we started with 5 pesos for the first week, for the second week, you have to save 2 times 5 pesos. So that's 10 pesos for the second week. From 10 pesos, how much you should save for the third week? Yes, that's right. That's 10 times 2 will give you 20 pesos for the third week. How about on the fourth week? Yes, that's 20 times 2 will give you 40 pesos for the fourth week. How about on the 5th week? Yes, that's 40 times 2 will give you 80 pesos for the 5th week. How about on the 6th week? How much will you save? Try it yourself. I'll give you 5 seconds. Well, on the 6th week, you should save, that's right, 160 pesos. After 6 weeks, how much will you save all in all? That's right, you will have 315 pesos after 6 weeks. From that amount, can you buy that blouse as a Christmas present to your mom? Yes, you can. Absolutely. What is the sequence obtained? We have the sequence 5, 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160. Can you see any pattern from this sequence? Yes, that's right. Considering 5 pesos as the first term, the second term, 10, can be obtained by multiplying the first term 5 to a constant number 2. By multiplying the constant number 2 to the second term 10, you will get the third term 20 and so on. The constant number being multiplied to the terms to get the next term is referred to as the common ratio, represented by the letter R. Again, the constant number being multiplied to the terms to get the next term is referred to as the common ratio, represented with the letter R. This sequence is an example of geometric sequence. Using the given terms of the sequence, how will you obtain the common ratio? The common ratio R is obtained by dividing the succeeding term by the preceding term. Again, the common ratio R is obtained by dividing the succeeding term by the preceding term. Or simply using this formula, a sub 2 divided by a sub 1, or a sub 3 divided by a sub 2, or a sub 4 divided by a sub 3, and so on. Do you know that by using the common ratio R, we can get the missing terms of the sequence? Let's try this. Identify the value of the missing term that will satisfy the given geometric sequence 3, 12, 48, blank. The missing term is the succeeding term and comes after 48. To obtain the missing term, let's determine first the common ratio, and that is dividing the second term, or a sub 2, by the first term, a sub 1. Let's substitute the values. A sub 2 is equal to, that is 12, divided by a sub 1, which is 3, and 12 divided by 3 will give us 4. Or you can also use a sub 3 divided by a sub 2. Our a sub 3, or the third term, is 48 divided by our a sub 2, or the second term, that is 12. 48 divided by 12 will also give us 4. Therefore, our common ratio R is equal to 4. Now, using the common ratio 4, we will get the next term by multiplying the third term, which is 48, times the common ratio. Our a sub 4 now is equal to a sub 3, which is 48, times the common ratio, which is 4. Our a sub 4 is equal to 192. How about if the first term is missing, just like in this example? Blank, 32, 64, 128. The missing term is a preceding term and comes before 32. What should we do next? Yes, we will determine the common ratio. Again, that is by dividing the succeeding term by its preceding term. Since we don't have the first term, we can resort to dividing the third term, or a sub 3, which is 64, by the second term, or a sub 2, that is equal to 32. Dividing 64 by 32, we will get 2. Or we can use the fourth term, a sub 4, which is equal to 128, divided by our third term, or a sub 3, which is equal to 64. 128 divided by 64 will give us 2. Thus, the common ratio for this sequence is 2. Since we are looking for the unknown preceding term, instead of multiplying, we will divide the second term, 32, by the common ratio, 2, which is equal to, correct, that is equal to 16. Thus, our first term, or a sub 1 in the geometric sequence, is 16. Oh, so amazing, isn't it? Remember, to identify the missing term, first, you must have to find the common ratio. If the unknown value is a succeeding term, then multiply the preceding term to the common ratio. If the unknown value is a preceding term, then divide the succeeding term by the common ratio. Let's see what you've learned. Find the common ratio and the missing values in the sequence, blank, negative 10, 50, negative 250, blank. As you can notice, we don't have the first term, or a sub 1, and the last term, or a sub 5. First thing we need to do is to look for the common ratio, r, and that is using the given values from our sequence. In this case, we will use the third term, a sub 3, divided by the second term, which is negative 10. So that's 50 divided by negative 10, we will get negative 5. We get negative 5 because we divide numbers with unlike signs. To confirm whether we have the same common ratio, we will try the fourth term, a sub 4, divided by the third term, which is a sub 3, that is equal to, a sub 4 is negative 250, divided by the third term, which is 50, negative 250 divided by 50, will give us negative 5. See? If you use a sub 3 divided by a sub 2 or a sub 4 divided by a sub 3, you will get the same common ratio. Since we now have the common ratio, let's find the first term, and that is by dividing the second term, a sub 2, by the common ratio. A sub 2 is equal to negative 10 divided by the common ratio, which is negative 5. Our a sub 1 now is equal to negative 10 divided by negative 5, that is positive 2. Positive since we are dividing numbers with like signs. And to look for the fifth term, or a sub 5, since we're looking for the next term, we will use multiplication, multiplying the fourth term to the common ratio, which is negative 5. So that's a sub 5 is equal to the product of a sub 4 and the common ratio. A sub 5 is equal to, our fourth term is negative 250 times the common ratio, which is negative 5. Our a sub 5 is equal to 1,250. Positive since we are multiplying numbers with like signs. Thus, the fifth term of the sequence is 1,250, and the missing terms are 2 and 1,250 respectively. From the given sequence, notice that there is a common ratio being multiplied to obtain the succeeding term or terms, or dividing the given succeeding term by the common ratio to get the preceding term. Bear in mind, these concepts will help you determine that a given sequence is a geometric sequence. Take a look at these sequences. For letter A, 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. B, 5, 15, 45, 135, and so on. Which do you think is a geometric sequence? How about an arithmetic sequence? Notice in sequence A, a number is added to the first term 12 to get the second term 15. Likewise, the same number is added to the second term 15 to get the third term 18, and so on. What is the constant number? Correct, 3. What do you call the constant number 3 in the sequence? Yes, it is called the common difference. Now, let's take a look at sequence B. Notice a number is multiplied to the first term 5 to get the second term 15. And the same number is multiplied to the second term 15 to get the third term 45, and so on. What is the constant number? Yes, it's 3. And what do you call the constant number 3 multiplied to the term to get the succeeding term? Very well. We call it the common ratio. Take a look again to the given sequences. For sequence A, 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on is... You're right! Since a common difference 3 is added to the preceding term to get the next term. Therefore, it is an arithmetic sequence. For sequence B, 5, 15, 45, 135, and so on is what type of sequence? That's right! It is a geometric sequence because a common ratio 3 is multiplied to the preceding term to get the succeeding term. Using the table, determine the pattern and the type of sequence the following belongs. For sequence A, that's 6, 11, 16, 21, and so on. What is the pattern? Yes, that's correct. 5 is added to the preceding term to get the next term. What type of sequence is that? Correct! That is arithmetic sequence. Let's proceed to sequence B. 3, 9, 27, 81, and so on. What is the pattern? That's correct. 3 is multiplied to the preceding term to get the succeeding term. And what type of sequence is that? Correct. That is geometric sequence. Congratulations for a job well done. Now that you've learned the concepts related to geometric sequence, how does arithmetic sequence differ from geometric sequence? Well, an arithmetic sequence is a sequence obtained by adding a common difference, d, to the preceding term in order to obtain the next term or terms. While a geometric sequence is a sequence obtained by multiplying a common ratio, r, to the preceding term in order to obtain the succeeding term or terms. Now, determine if the following sequence is arithmetic or geometric. Number 1, 2, 6, 18, 54, 162, and so on. Number 2, 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Number 3, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And number 4, 3, 6, 12, 24, and so on. You're right! Items 2 and 3 are arithmetic sequences with the common difference of 2 and 1 respectively. While items 1 and 4 are geometric sequences with a common ratio of 3 and 2 respectively. Oh, so awesome, right? I hope you've learned a lot. And that concludes our lesson for today. See you again in the next episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to the DepEd TV official YouTube channel. This has been Sir Jason Flores also. Bear in mind that learning math will always be fun and easy. Be also, be awesome. Only here on DepEd TV.
Ana. Present. Herrera. Present. Valera. Present.
Handa ba tayo sa school year 2020?
Present.
Ngayong taon, ang edukasyon tuloy pa rin. Sa tulong ng DepEd, mga guro at mga magulang ang handang isip, handa bukas. Tuloy-tuloy ang pag-aaral. May mga modules para sa iba't ibang antas. Sa government TV, maging sa radyo. Mahalagang ligtas ang ating mga estudyante at guro. Kaya kahit nasa bahay, tuloy ang edukasyon. Kung tulong-tulong, may paraan, may aralan.
Handang isip, handa bukas.
Bisitahin ang DepEd Philippines sa Facebook at ang deped.gov.ph.
Hello, hello! Welcome to another episode of Learning English with your one and only Ma'am Carla, your tender, loving English teacher broadcaster. Now, let's have a short quiz bee to review about plot, setting, and characterization. This quiz bee is very easy. You simply have to identify the terms defined in each number. Write your answers in your board or paper. At the count of 5, or when you hear this sound, you have to raise your board and show me your answer. Game? Alright, let's play. Number 1. It refers to the period or time when the story happens. Go! That's right! The answer is setting. Number 2. It is the struggle faced by the main character in the story. Go! Correct! It is conflict. Number 3. It is the turning point and most exciting part of the story where the main character faces a major enemy, fear, challenge, or other source of conflict. Go! Good remembering! It is climax! Number 4. It is the final outcome of events in the story. It is also known as denouement. Go! Awesome! The answer is resolution. Number 5. It refers to any person, animal, or figure represented as actor or mover in a story. Go! Brilliant! It's character. Last time, we learned that the appraisal of the unity of plot, setting, and characterization in a material viewed is important to identify and understand the author's purpose. Today, we will continue studying about plot, setting, and characterization. We will dig deeper into these terms. But wait! Do you know Daedalus and Icarus? Okay, listen carefully. I will tell you their story after we unlock the vocabulary words that we will encounter in the story. I want you to arrange the jumbled letters to form the word that is being defined in each number. Write your answers in a piece of paper. You have 5 seconds to unscramble each word. Ready? Nice! Let's vocabulary, let's go! Number 1. It means intentionally harmful and violent. Did you write vicious? Excellent! You got it right. Example: the poor little girl was paralyzed after being bitten by a vicious snake in the forest. Again, number 1 is vicious. Number 2. It refers to a person who is an expert in a particular craft. If your answer is craftsman, you have another point. Example: David has been working as a master craftsman in Laguna for 20 years now. Number 2 is craftsman. Number 3, it means to attract or tempt someone by offering him something pleasant. Entice? Your answer is correct. Example: the hype specifications of the phone enticed May to replace her 3-year-old phone. Again, that is entice. Number 4, it is a maze or place with many confusing pathways. Did you say labyrinth? Cool! It is correct. Example: a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers were built near the museum. Again, number 4 is labyrinth. And number 5, it means to think about something carefully. Very good. The answer is ponder. Example: Julia and her friends ponder how to surprise Melvin on his birthday. Again, number 5 is ponder. Good job, grade 10. Congratulations! 5 words are added to your word bank today. And with that, I'm sure that you can understand the story easily. So sit back and relax. Let's all be amazed by the story of Daedalus and Icarus. Once upon a time, on the island of Crete, there lived a minotaur, a vicious creature that was a half man and half bull. Everyone in the island was terrified of it because it desired nothing more than to devour human flesh. The people pleaded King Minos to slay the monster, but the king refused to this. Instead, he asked Daedalus, a talented architect, inventor, and master craftsman, to build a labyrinth, a huge complicated maze for his beloved pet. Daedalus unstoppably worked on it day and night. He made it so complex that it would be nearly impossible for anyone or anything to escape from it. He was helped by his son Icarus. Once done, King Minos instructed Daedalus to entice the Minotaur into the labyrinth by leaving some appetizing meat in its center. When the monster was in the labyrinth, it was trapped and unable to escape. The king was greatly enchanted with it. He thought of using this for his enemies. "My enemies deserve a dreadful death in the hands of the Minotaur, and this is a perfect invention," said King Minos. From then on, anyone who was sent to the maze would be imprisoned and eventually be bitten alive by the violent creature. However, when the king perceived that Daedalus was no longer beneficial, he threw him into the labyrinth together with his son Icarus. King Minos betrayed Daedalus and intended to kill them. But since Daedalus was the one who built the maze, he and his son was able to find their way out. When they came out of the labyrinth, Daedalus and Icarus managed to go to the shore and pondered on their next plan. They carefully thought of a strategy to leave the island without being noticed by the king. But they felt hopeless because there seemed to be no way. Daedalus looked up at the sky and whispered, "God of wisdom, help us!" Then he noticed the birds flying in the air. "Wings!" he shouted. "Yes, we need wings to fly and be free as a bird." He excitedly explained his bright idea to Icarus. He instructed him to gather as many birds' feathers as he could find. So, from that day, Icarus began to collect feathers. Then, Daedalus meticulously glued them together with wax. After long weeks of hard work and sleepless nights, Daedalus finally finished making 2 pairs of wings. "With these birds, you could fly like a bird," he told Icarus. "But remember, you must never fly too close to the sun. If you do, the wax that binds the feathers together will melt. And if you fly too close to the ocean, your wings might get wet and will be too heavy for you to fly." Icarus agreed. Then he enthusiastically attached the wings to his arms and helped his father to put on his wings too. "Let's fly! Follow me!" Up they rose, Icarus after his father, up in the air. And when they looked down, they saw the island of Crete beneath them. Icarus flew higher and faster. He was absolutely ecstatic. Alas, he felt like a bird. "Sun, stop! The wax will melt!" Daedalus screamed when he saw Icarus flying close to the sun. But Icarus was too thrilled, so he did not hear his father's warning. Suddenly, he noticed that a feather wavered, dropped toward the ocean, and then another, and then another. Oh, the wax was melting! "Help!" he shouted. But before Daedalus could reach his son, poor Icarus fell with a heavy splash into the water. Daedalus saw nothing but the feathers afloat on the ocean, and he knew that his son drowned. Daedalus named the ocean Icaria in remembrance of his son and left with a heavy heart. Now, let's try to apply what we've learned from our previous discussion to the tale we heard today. Let's start with the characters. Last time, we learned that characters are the persons, animals, creatures, or things that serve as actors or movers in a story. Could you tell me who the characters are in the story? Good! The characters in the story are Daedalus, Icarus, King Minos, and the Minotaur. But how do we categorize them? There are various types of characters in a story. They are: Number 1, protagonist, or the main character around which the whole story revolves. He is usually the primary agent who makes the major decisions and experiences the costs of those decisions and often faces the most substantial conflicts. Daedalus is the main character in the story who was characterized as a talented architect, inventor, and craftsman. He was the one who designed the labyrinth for the Minotaur in the island of Crete and thought of an extraordinary plan to escape from the realm of death set by the villain. He exhibited traits of a hero such as intelligence, for he stood out from the crowds for having created many objects that figure prominently in various myths. Courage, for making wings to escape, and love, for reminding his son Icarus not to fly too close to the sun and near the ocean. Next, we have Icarus. Is he a protagonist, deuteragonist, or antagonist? Icarus was the son of Daedalus, who soared up excitedly, forgetting his father's warning, and eventually drowned in the sea. He was Daedalus's assistant in building the labyrinth and gathering birds' feathers, and the second most important character in the story. Therefore, he is a deuteragonist. We also have King Minos. What do you think? Is he a protagonist, deuteragonist, or antagonist? We learned that King Minos was the king of the island of Crete who instructed Daedalus to build a labyrinth for the Minotaur. Yet, he decided to throw Daedalus and Icarus into the maze and planned to kill them when they had no further use to him. Undeniably, King Minos is the antagonist in the story. He played as the villain or the bad guy who caused the conflict to the protagonist, Daedalus. What about the Minotaur? Is it a protagonist, deuteragonist, or antagonist? You might think that the Minotaur is also an antagonist because it killed people and caused the main character to struggle, but think again. The Minotaur was a half-man and half-bull monster that was known for its craving to kill innocent victims and devour human flesh. It is a deuteragonist because it was the primary reason why the labyrinth in Crete was created. Remember, a deuteragonist could be any character who plays the second most important role in the story. Now, let's discuss about the plot of the story. Do you still remember what a plot is? Good memory! A plot is the sequence of events that makes up a story. And a plot has 5 elements. Could you enumerate them for me?
Exposition, rising action,
Climax,
falling action, resolution.
Perfect! I'm sure you could also perfectly arrange the plot of the story, Daedalus and Icarus, in order, right? Let's try it. I want you to arrange the following pictures according to the sequence of events in the story we listened to earlier. Identify which scene is the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. You have 30 seconds to ponder on this. Now, tell me, which scene is the exposition? Correct. Picture 2 shows the exposition of the story. This part introduces the setting and the characters. We learned that in the island of Crete, there was a half-man, half-bull monster named Minotaur. It loved nothing more than to feast on human flesh, which caused fear to everyone. We also learned that the people begged King Minos to kill the monstrous evil, but he said no to it. And what's next? Good. That's picture 4. The rising action began when King Minos hired Daedalus to build a labyrinth to keep the Minotaur from escaping. Icarus, son of Daedalus, helped his father in building the maze. They kept working on it day and night. But the ungrateful King Minos decided to lock the two in the labyrinth after the construction of the maze. And now, what is the most exciting part of the story or the climax? Yes, that's right. Picture 5 illustrates the turning point of the story. As you could see, Daedalus and Icarus looked terrified when they were inside the labyrinth. But of course, Daedalus didn't want to stay in prison with his son, so he began to devise a way to escape. He thought of creating wings so that they could fly and be free from the island of Crete. A crazy plan, isn't it? Yes, but that crazy plan led the story to its falling action. And which one is it? Great! It is picture 1. We learned that the father and son successfully produced 2 pairs of wings after long weeks of hard work and sleepless nights. Daedalus warned his son about the possible dangers of flying. He reminded Icarus not to fly too close to the sun and not too near the ocean. What could you say about the ending of the story? I'm sure you find it tragic. Well, just like what we've discussed last time, a resolution could be good or bad, happy or sad, and positive or disastrous. As long as it satisfies the audience's curiosity and leaves a significant lesson, it is considered a good resolution. And lastly, setting. Setting refers to the time and location or when and where a story happens. We discovered the 5 aspects that contribute to evaluating a setting. They are: place. Where does the action of the story take place? Time. When does the story happen? Weather conditions. Is it rainy, sunny, or stormy? Social conditions. What is the daily life of the characters like? And mood. What feeling is created at the beginning of the story? Always remember, learning English may be difficult at first, but if you put your heart in it, you will surely love it. I am Ma'am Carla, heart your service.
Math Buhay, and welcome to DepEd TV. This is Mathtivated for Grade 11 General Mathematics. I am Teacher Carol, and there's nothing too big or too small because we will learn it all. So keep Mathtivated and stay with me because we are together in this wonderful journey. Hi, how are you? I hope that you stay home while being Mathtivated. Today, we'll have another interesting discussion. So let's get started. On this episode, you will be able to represent real-life situations using one-to-one functions, determine the inverse of a one-to-one function, represent an inverse through its table of values and graph, and find the domain and range of an inverse. Again, we will be dealing with correspondence, but a special one. Imagine that this is your crush, and this is you. How will you feel if that person has a crush on you, and only you? That situation is an example of a one-to-one function. Marriage in Christians is also another example. A wife can only take one husband, and a husband can only have one wife under one marriage. Thus, a one-to-one function can be defined as a function f of x where f of x sub 1 is not equal to f of x sub 2 whenever x sub 1 is not equal to x sub 2. In other words, there has to be no two different values of x to have the same value of y. What's more special about one-to-one function is it has an inverse. Last time, we had a discussion on inverse of a function. An inverse is a function whose domain is the range of the original function and whose range is the domain of the original function. Will you recall how we get the inverse of a function? First, we interchange x to y, then we solve for y. Let us take g of x as our function. This can also be written as y is equal to 2x plus 1 all over x plus 4. To get the inverse, we interchange x and y. This will give us x equals 2y plus 1 all over y plus 4. We solve the equation. We have x times y plus 4 and 1 times 2y plus 1. This gives us x times the quantity y plus 4 equals 2y plus 1 times 1. Solving for y, we will have x times y is xy, and x times 4 is 4x. It is equal to 2y plus 1. We now put all the terms with y coefficient on one side of the equation. By addition property of equality, we will have xy plus 4x plus negative 2y equals 2y plus 1 plus negative 2y. This gives us xy plus 4x minus 2y equals 1. We now move 4x to the right-hand side of the equation. By addition property of equality, we will have xy plus 4x minus 2y plus negative 4x equals 1 plus negative 4x. Combining like terms, we will have xy minus 2y equals 1 minus 4x. Since we want y alone on the left-hand side of the equation, we factor it out from xy minus 2y. Now, our equation will be y times the quantity x minus 2 equals 1 minus 4x. By multiplication property of equality, we multiply 1 over x minus 2 on both sides of the equation. We then have y equals 1 minus 4x all over x minus 2. Thus, the inverse of g of x is 1 minus 4x all over x minus 2. We just finished getting the inverse of a one-to-one function. Great job! Still motivated? Let us now try to represent the inverse of a function using table of values. Suppose we have -2, -1, 0, and 1 as the values of x. Why do you think we ended with 1 and did not include 2? If you will notice, the denominator is x minus 2, and x equals 2 is the vertical asymptote of the graph, which means it will not touch the line x equals 2. Let us take the value of x equals -2. That will be the inverse of the function is equal to 1 minus 4 times -2 all over -2 minus 2. -4 times -2 gives us 8. 1 plus 8 is 9. -2 minus 2 gives us -4. Thus, for x equals -2, y is -9/4. Let us now have x equals -1. We now have the inverse of the function is equal to 1 minus 4 times -1 all over -1 minus 2. -4 times -1 is +4. 1 plus 4 is 5. And -1 minus 2 is -3. Thus, y is -5/3 when x is -1. Let us now have x equals 0. Now, the inverse of the function is equal to 1 minus 4 times 0 all over 0 minus 2. -4 times 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. And 0 minus 2 is -2. Thus, y is -1/2 when x is 0. Let us now have x equals 1. The inverse is now equal to 1 minus 4 times 1 all over 1 minus 2. -4 times 1 is -4. 1 minus 4 is -3. And 1 minus 2 is -1. And -3 over -1 is simply +3. Thus, y is 3 when x is 1. Now, this table of values represent the inverse function of g of x. Very good! We were able to represent the inverse of a function through its table of values. Let's keep motivated and represent the inverse through a graph. Let us find the intercepts of the function first. Here, the x-intercept is 1/4, 0, while the y-intercept is 0, -1/2. We then find the asymptotes. The vertical asymptote is x equals 2. And the horizontal asymptote is y equals -4. We may now consider points we got from evaluation of the function. Our first point is -2, -9/4. That is 2 units to the left of 0 and 9/4 units below 0. The second point is -1, -5/3. That is 1 unit to the left of 0 and 5/3 units below 0. For the third point, that's 0, -1/2. that is half unit just below the origin. The last point, 1, 3. That's 1 unit to the right of 0 and 3 units above. We may also consider points on the right side of the vertical asymptotes. These are 4, -15 halves, 5, -19 thirds, 6, -23 fourths, and 7, -27 fifths. We may now draw the graph passing through these points and considering the asymptotes. Well done! We have represented an inverse function through its graph. Let's get more mathemated and find the domain and range of the inverse of g of x. A while ago, we said that an inverse of a function is a function whose domain is the range of the original function, and its range is the domain of the original function. Thus, what we need are just the domain of the original function, which is the range of the inverse, and the domain of the inverse. Since this is a rational function, we have to take note that in getting the domain, we have a restriction that the denominator should not be equal to 0. Thus, we do not include value or values of x that will make our denominator equal to 0. Let us take first the domain of the inverse function 1 minus 4x all over x minus 2. In this case, x should not be equal to 2, since that will make the denominator equal to 0. Thus, we say that the domain of the inverse function is the set of all real numbers except 2. Now, for the range of the inverse function, we get the domain of the original function. For the denominator of g of x should not be equal to -4, because -4 plus 4 will make the denominator 0. Thus, the domain of g of x is the set of all real numbers except -4. This is also the range of the inverse function. Thus, the inverse function's domain is the set of all real numbers except 2, while its range is the set of all real numbers except -4. We have finished representing real-life situations using one-to-one functions, determining the inverse of a one-to-one function, representing an inverse through its table of values and graph, and finding the domain and range of an inverse. A job well done! You really are a certified mathemated. I want to know how well you learned in today's episode. Write what you have learned today. And you may post your works on your Facebook accounts and use the hashtag MathEvatedE4. Now let us check your understanding of today's episode. You will be answering 7 items. For item 1, find the inverse of h of x. The inverse of h of x is x plus 1 all over 2. For items 2 to 5, fill in the given table of values. Let us have them. For number 2, we have y is equal to 1. Item 3, y is equal to 3/2 or 1 1/2. Number 4. We have 2. And for number 5, y is equal to 5/2 or 2 1/2. Item 6. Find the domain of the inverse function. Since the denominator of the inverse is 2, the domain of the inverse is the set of all real numbers. For the last item, number 7, find the range of the inverse function. For the range, we have the set of all real numbers. Count the number of correct items. Those who got scores of 6 or 7, that's a very good job. For those whose scores is less than 6, always be reminded that your efforts can make a big difference. It is already a great job that you stayed with me. Let's add more effort. I am excited of how much you will grow. So stay motivated and grow your efforts, and soon you will grow your skills and knowledge. I had fun being with you, my motivated students. I hope that you also did. Again, this is Teacher Carol reminding you that what others can do, you can too. So let's grow our efforts for us to grow our skills and knowledge. See you in our next episode.
Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Bago ka magluto, bago ka maghain, maghugas ng mga kamay bago ka kumain. Bago mo ihele, bago padede. Hugasan ng kamay pag hawak ka kay baby. Basain, sabunin mga kamay. Kuskusin ang daliri ng pantay. Kuskusin ang palad, kuskusin ng mahusay. Pati ilalim ng kuko ay iyong idamay. Yes, 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 yes. Pati ilalim ng kuko ay iyong idamay. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Pagkatapos mong hawakan at pakainin ang mga alaga mong hayop na dumihin, ang mga kamay simulan mo nang linisin bago pa lumipat ang sakit na aalipin sa'yo. Kailangan mo ito gawin, wastong paglinis ng kamay pairalim. Pagkatapos sa kubeta, pagpasok mo sa bahay, diretso ka sa gripo, kamay iyong ialay. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Hugasan ng kamay at iwagayway. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin. Basain, sabunin, kuskusin, kuskusin.
Ayan, Aisen. Iintayin mo na lang itong kumulo, tapos tatanggalin mo ang takip para hindi umapaw ang tubig. Sige po, ate. May iwan mo na kita. First time ko magsaing. Ang tagal naman ito. Makapaglaro nga muna. Naamoy ko. Aisen, ang sinain mo! Ate, sorry po, sorry po. Nalibang po ako sa paglalaro. Okay na. Tay, ano po?
Mga kayo ng Diyos, mga anak. Nakakatuwa naman, nakapaganda na kayo ng ating pagkain.
Opo, Tay. Sa isip ko ngayon na nagsaing.
Wow, napakasali ko talaga ate. Kung nandito lang sana ang nanay ninyo, sigurado proud na proud ka sa inyo. Siya tara, kumain na tayo at baka lumamig pa ang ating pagkain. Kamusta na ba ang inyong pagpasok?
Taking responsibility has been part of our daily living. Even when we're still very young, we were already trained by our parents to take on some duties and responsibilities. It was their way of helping us become more capable of whatever tasks or challenges we will be having in the near future, and to be responsible for whatever obligations we will have to take as an individual and as part of a bigger community. In this episode, you will learn how you can help yourself become a responsible adolescent in preparation for adulthood and understand mental health and psychological well-being. Hi class, I'm Teacher Mark, and welcome to your show, where we will learn to become more aware of who we are and better understand ourselves and the people around us. I will guide you in your journey of personal empowerment to become more positive as a person, to be the best version of yourself every day, and to help you raise your self-confidence, self-motivation, and more. Commit to your vision or plan in achieving your aims and goals in life. Join me as we uncover your limitless potential. Let's rock! This is Personal Development on DepEd TV. We need to be given responsibility to learn responsibility. Responsibility is any moral, legal, or mental obligation or duty that is directly or indirectly entrusted to you by the people around you, for which you are held accountable for whatever consequences or circumstances that may arrive in the future. Let us highlight the 3 keywords here: responsibility, trust, and accountability. Responsibility is part of growing up. We earn the trust of others when we begin to be responsible, when we learn to accept and succeed in challenges. We become accountable for our actions as we take ownership of them to ensure that responsibilities are achieved as expected. Being responsible is part of every man's life. Being a capable and responsible adolescent means living your life in a harmonious way with everyone who is a part of your life. It is by stepping up, doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. Being responsible is also learning how to set your priorities and making sure to take the necessary actions to get them done by planning, managing your time well, and taking care of your commitments. With that, you have much less stress and you gain the respect of other people. Becoming a responsible person, performing his own sets of duties and accountabilities is not as simple as 1, 2, 3. But as soon as it manifests in one's personality, one can have a greater impact on the community. A person who is known for his sense of responsibility also gains positive feedback from his colleagues, peers, and/or environment. And it can create a domino effect. He will serve as a concrete example in his community. His way of living will become worthy of emulation. Individuals who are being emulated by the whole community eventually serve as the key for the good transformation of the society. Before becoming a full-grown responsible individual, an adolescent like you must be familiar and have a wider understanding of the set of responsibilities that are established as the norms or standards for you to be considered a responsible person. All right, class? What are the common obligations that are expected from an adolescent like you? Let us listen to your answers.
Maging magalang sa nakakatanda at marunong rumispeto sa nakakataas sa amin. Mag-alaga ng mga kapatid ko nung maliit pa si Bunso. Ako din na nagbubuhat at nagpapatuloy sa kanya. Minsan, ako na din na nagiging guro sa kanila. Nag-aaral-aralan kami. Pagbutihin ang ating pag-aaral dahil ang edukasyon ang isa sa pinakamahalagang pamana ng magulang natin sa atin.
Umiwas sa mga masasamang bisyo, maging mabuting tao na may pagmamalaki ng aking magulang at ng aking pamilya.
Maging responsable at mapagkakatiwalaan at higit sa lahat, maging matalino sa mga kaibigan na sasamahan.
Very good! Thanks for sharing, class! Showing respect for your elders, taking care of your younger siblings, studying well, avoiding and engaging in vices, establishing a good identity, earning the trust of the people around you, distinguishing good from bad company, getting to know yourself better are some of your obligations as a responsible adolescent. Getting you ready for your life ahead becomes the duty of the whole society. There are a number of suggestions and teachings on how you can really turn into a responsible individual. Here are some of the common teachings on how you can establish a sense of responsibility. Number 1, know your priorities. Reflecting on what things are the most important for you and making the decision to prioritize them are a must. And the best strategy for you is to clearly identify your goal and purpose, as this will lead you in the right direction. Setting your priorities means that you will be more decisive and you will procrastinate less. It also means that you will always think about how you're making use of the time you have. I'm sure there have been times that you did not make use of your time wisely. Think about the hours you spent browsing and scrolling through social media that could have been used for better things, like reading a book or exercising. Use your spare time in smart and creative ways. Stop wasting precious time. Number 2, stop making excuses. Stop blaming. Stop complaining. Think of the people you know who always complain about what's happening to them, who have the habit of making excuses when they don't fulfill what they promise, and who blame others when things don't turn out the way they are planned. These people are not taking responsibility for their actions. Being responsible means making the right choices when it comes to responding to where your life takes you, especially when things are not going well, like being in the middle of this pandemic. An irresponsible person will take the easy way out and adopt a victim mentality and feel that he cannot do anything. On the other hand, a responsible person knows that he always has a choice to not be a victim of the circumstances he's in. He will opt to have a victor mentality. He will look at the situation and plan what he must do and stick to it. He will be honest with himself, so he will know what he is capable of doing by himself and when he will require help from others. A responsible person will also not complain idly about something that isn't the way it should be. Instead, he will bring it to the attention of the people involved and offer to be part of the solution. He also realizes that there is something good that can come out of a bad experience. Not only are there lessons learned, but he may come out of it a better and stronger person. Number 3, be punctual, be consistent. I would like to share something that I read before about punctuality that has stuck with me all these years. And what is it? It goes this way. Early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. I constantly share this with all of my students. Anyone who has been in my class knows that being late is one of my pet peeves. They know that being late for my class is unacceptable. Why? Because being on time all the time is a sign of respect, of being responsible, and of somehow being trustworthy. Be punctual all the time. Consistency is the key, and you can develop this by making it a habit to get up early, even on the weekends. Number 4, learn how to organize and manage your life. Come up with a system to be on top of your tasks and goals. Track your personal plans and obligations. Have a to-do list. Write down your reminders and notes in a planner, or put them in the calendar app on your phone. This will help you organize your day on a daily basis. One other area you need to develop as part of being a responsible person is knowing how to manage your finances, which is something I learned to do when I became a financial advisor. Even though you'd still depend on your parents for your daily allowance, it doesn't mean you can't start saving money now. It is important to learn how to budget, save, and invest. Learn the value of money. Number 5, take responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Keep your cool and don't let your anger or jealousy get out of hand. Do you know that you can get rid of these 2 negative emotions by avoiding a comparison mentality? You also need to remember that you don't have control over how other people respond to you. You only have control over how you respond to them. Refuse to take anything personally. Don't assume. It is better to communicate openly with everyone in your life. Choose to be happy and live in the present moment. You can't change how people treat you or what they say about you. All you can do is change how you react to it. By Mahatma Gandhi. We all have our own battles. We encounter different challenges in life, and it's up to us on how to deal with each challenge. Nowadays, most adolescents like you deal with different issues, whether it's your friends, family, academics, relationships, and even pressure that could lead to stress, and worse, depression. There are several ways on how to deal and cope with stress. Most of the time, dealing with stress differs from person to person. It is better to assess yourself first for you to know what strategy you can easily adopt to deal with stress. Based on what we have watched, you're probably very familiar with the experience of stress, a condition characterized by symptoms of physical or emotional tension. Anyone from the class who would like to share situations where you felt stress?
Sir, ako po tuwing exam, stress po ako.
Sir, nai-stress po ako pag hindi nagme-message yung BF ko. Sana all!
O sir, sobrang gipit ko sa bahay. Nawala ng trabaho si tatay, ang daming problema. Sobrang gipit kayo ngayon, sir eh.
Ako, sir, nai-stress ako sa mga bashers ko online. But they will never ever break. Not an inch of me.
An individual may feel stress when he is struggling to accept changes in his physical, mental, and emotional responses. The tension brought about by stress may lead to negative responses, such as anger, frustration, and nervousness. What you may not know is that it's a natural response of the mind and body to a situation in which a person feels threatened or worried. Stress can be positive, like the excitement of preparing your 18th birthday, or negative, like dealing with the loss of a family member. Demanding or threatening events are often referred to as stressors. These events can cause stress, the organism's biological and behavioral response to the stressor. There are different models or theories about stress. Let us focus on the three views of stress. Some researchers have conceptualized stress as a demanding or threatening event or situation. Example, final exams, final projects, or an oral defense. Such conceptualizations are known as stress as stimulus. Stress as response. This model of stress emphasizes the physiological responses that occur when faced with demanding or threatening situations. Think of this as what's happening inside your body when we are stressed. Stress as relational. This model emphasizes the relationship between the person and the environment. Stress is the consequence of a person's appraisal processes, the assessment of whether personal resources are sufficient to meet the demands of the environment. Stress can be harmful when it is severe enough to make you feel overwhelmed and out of control. Strong emotions like fear, sadness, or other symptoms of depressions are normal if they are temporary and do not interfere with daily activities. If these emotions last too long or cause other problems, it's a different story. We are nearing the end of our episode. No matter what developmental stage we are in, managing stress, making wise decisions, becoming responsible and accountable are very important traits that we must possess, especially for adolescents like you. This is the best time to imbibe the right values, virtues, and other essential qualities that will prepare you for life as an adult. The demands and expectations of your parents and the people around you can be stressful at times. But we have learned from our past episodes that we can change our mindset. We can change stress or challenges to opportunities which can make your life exciting. This is an indication of becoming a responsible and mentally mature adolescent. For our next episode, we will identify the different causes and effects of stress and how to cope with stress. Here is a quote from Paulo Coelho. Stress, anxiety, and depression are caused when we're living to please others. We don't have to please everyone when we know that we have done our best. It doesn't matter what other people think. We know that we're doing the right thing and we're doing it out of love and in the service of others. Be kind and be humble. Choose not to let any situation cause you stress. You can handle and manage it. It is temporary. Treat difficult situations as challenges to overcome and as opportunities for growth. Share your thoughts about being a capable and responsible adolescent. How can you nurture your mental health and well-being? Don't forget to use the hashtag MyPDJourney and hashtag DepEdTV. This is Teacher Mark. I see greatness in you. Know your worth and make a habit of developing yourself and be your best version every day. See you in our next episode on personal development on DepEdTV. Bye, class!
Magandang October sa inyong lahat! Bakit magandang October? Dahil sa October, ginaganap ang Global Hand Washing Day! Madalas nating marinig ngayong pandemya na ang paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang tubig at sabon ay isa sa mga mabisang paraan para mapigilan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ngunit, alam nyo ba na napipigilan din ng paghuhugas ng kamay ang iba pang mga sakit kagaya ng diarrhea o pagtatae? Panoorin natin ang susunod na video para maunawaan kung paano nangyayari ito. Nakita niyo ba ang nangyari sa bata sa video? Ang dumi ng kamay niya, di ba? Punong-puno ng mga germs o mikrobyo mula sa mga bagay na kanyang hinawakan. Kadiri! Tapos, hindi siya naghugas ng kamay bago kumain, kaya hindi natanggal ang mga mikrobyo at nakapasok sa kanyang katawan. Kaya siya nagkasakit. Mahalagang maghugas ng kamay gamit ang tubig at sabon sa mga critical times o mga importanteng pagkakataon. Alam niyo ba kung ano ang mga ito? Bago kumain,
pagkatapos tumulong sa gawaing bahay, pagkatapos maglaro, pagkatapos humawak ng mga alagang hayop, pagkatapos umubo o bumahing, at pagkatapos gumamit ng banyo. Tandaan ninyo, kailangang maghugas ng kamay ng may sabon para mas epektibong matanggal ang mga mikrobyo. Para mas maunawaan natin kung paano nakakatulong ang sabon, gawin natin ang eksperimentong ito. Mga bata, magpatulong kayo sa mga nakatatanda sa inyo sa paggawa nito ha, lalo na sa paghahanda ng mga kailangan natin. Isang mangkok ng tubig, durog na paminta, at sabon! Handa na ba kayo? Para sa eksperimentong ito, isipin natin na ang paminta ay ang mga nakakadiring germs o mikrobyo. Ngayon, ilagay natin ang paminta sa mangkok ng tubig. Ano kayang mangyayari pag nilagay natin ang ating daliri sa mga mikrobyo? Parang wala namang nagbago. Ngayon naman, subukan natin ilagay ang isa sa pinaka-epektibong imbensyon para mapigilan ang mga sakit. Alam niyo ba kung ano ito? Ang sabon! Tingnan natin kung paano magre-react ang mga mikrobyo. O diba? Natatakot sila! Ang paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang tubig at sabon ay isa sa pinaka-epektibong paraan para matanggal natin at mapalayo ang mga mikrobyo. Bagamat ang paghuhugas ng kamay ay mahalaga sa pagpigil ng pagkalat ng mga sakit, napag-alaman ng isang pag-aaral ng UNICEF na isa lang sa bawat 10 estudyante sa elementarya ang naghuhugas ng kamay pagkatapos gumamit ng banyo. Isa sa mga kadalasang dahilan kung bakit hindi nakakapaghugas ang mga bata ay dahil sa nakakalimutan nila ito. Ayon sa mga pag-aaral, ang isang paraan para masolusyonan ang problemang ito ay ang paggamit ng nudges o mga visual na paalala na maghugas ng kamay. Para maunawaan natin ng mas maigi kung ano ang mga ito, pakinggan natin si Dr. Maria Corazon Dumlao mula sa Department of Education at John Villaseñor mula sa UNICEF.
Ang nudges ay mga bagay na nilalagay sa ating kapaligiran para magpaalala o mag-udyok sa atin na gawin ang isang ninanais na aksyon o pag-uugali. Halimbawa, kung nais natin na maghugas ng kamay ang mga bata, pagkatapos nilang gumamit ng banyo, maaari tayong maglagay ng maliliit na paalala sa daraanan nila mula sa banyo, papunta sa lababo o lugar kung saan sila maaaring maghugas ng kamay.
Sa isang pag-aaral na ginawa ng Department of Education, UNICEF at ID Insights sa mga paaralan sa Zamboanga del Norte, gumamit sila ng mga makukulay na footprints o bakas ng paa mula sa banyo hanggang sa hugasan ng kamay. Naglagay din sila ng mga posters sa likod ng pintuan para nakikita ito ng mga bata. Sa lugar ng hugasan mismo, naglagay sila ng mga mata at arrow na nakaturo sa sabon para paalalahanan ang mga bata na maghugas gamit ang sabon. Naglagay sila ng nudges sa ilang paaralan at ikinumpara ang paghuhugas ng kamay ng mga bata sa mga paaralan na walang nudges. Nakita nila na mabisa ang mga ito dahil tumaas ng 17 percentage points ang paghuhugas ng kamay ng mga bata sa mga paaralan kung saan naglagay ng mga visual na paalala.
Nakita din sa pag-aaral na tumaas ang access ng mga bata sa mga pasilidad na may tubig at sabon sa mga paaralan na may nudges. Maaaring ito ay dahil sa nahihikayat din ang mga guro na maghanda ng imbak na tubig at sabon para sa mga estudyante. Nasiyahan din ang mga bata sa pakikisalamuha sa nudges at nagustuhan ang itsura nito sa kanilang mga silid sa paaralan.
Kami sa Department of Education ay naniniwala na ang mga nudges o paalalang ito ay lubos na nakakatulong para maengganyo ang mga bata at masanay na madalas na maghugas ng kamay gamit ang tubig at sabon.
Nakita natin mula sa pag-aaral kung gaano ka-epektibo ang nudges o mga visual na paalala sa paghikayat sa mga bata na maghugas ng kamay sa paaralan. Alam nyo bang, maaari rin natin gawin ang nudges na ito sa ating mga bahay? Para sa ating mga mag-aaral na nanonood, tawagin ninyo ang inyong mga magulang para panoorin ang susunod na session at matulungan kayo sa paggawa ng nudges. Para magawa ang nudges sa bahay, kakailanganin natin ang mga ito. Sticker paper na iba't ibang kulay, matigas na papel, permanent marker, colored pens, colored pencils, gunting, scotch tape na makapal, at plastic cover. Para sa session na ito, gagawa tayo ng 4 na nudges. Ito ay ang mata, arrow, footprints, at poster. Ang una nating gagawin ay ang mata. Kuhanin ang sticker paper at gayahin ang drawing na ito. Ang layunin ng paglalagay ng mga mata ay para magaya ang pakiramdam na may nanonood habang naghuhugas ng kamay, na ayon sa mga pag-aaral ay epektibo sa pang-eengganyo ng maghugas ng kamay. Tapos na ba ang drawing? Gupitin ang drawing. Itabi muna ito. Ang susunod naman ay ang arrow. Kumuha ng isa pang sticker paper at mag-drawing tayo ng arrow na nakaturo sa baba. Kagaya ng drawing na ito. Kulayan gamit ang pentel pen. Gupitin ang drawing. Itabi muna natin ito. Ngayon naman, gumawa tayo ng footprints o bakas na mga paa mula sa inodoro o toilet papunta sa lababo. Maaari tayong gumamit uli ng mga stickers ng paa. Para dito, una, bilangin o i-estimate kung ilang footprints ang kailangan. Mag-drawing ng mga paa o footprints sa makukulay na sticker paper. Gupitin ang drawing ng footprints. Itabi muna ito. Ngayon naman, gawin natin ang poster na magpapaalala sa mga bata na maghugas ng kamay pagkatapos gumamit ng inidoro para hindi nila makalimutan ito at mabigyan sila ng mensahe tungkol sa kalinisan. Sa matigas na papel, gayahin ang drawing na ito at simpleng mensahe na maaaring ilagay sa likod ng pinto o malapit sa inidoro. Kung makikita ninyo, simple lang ang drawing at wala masyadong mga salitang nakalagay dahil ang layunin ng poster ay mapukaw ang emosyon ng mga bata, kagaya ng pandidiri sa mga mikrobyo. Pagkatapos i-drawing, balutan ng plastic cover para hindi ito madaling mabasa sa loob ng banyo. Maaari din itong ipalaminate kung gusto ninyong mas tumagal ito. Mayroong iba't ibang design ang mga poster na pwedeng palitan kada buwan. Para makakuha ng mas maraming design ng Nudges poster, bisitahin ang Wash in Schools website. Kamusta? Tapos na ba tayong mag-drawing ng mata, arrow, footprints at poster? Tingnan natin kung paano sila ilagay sa ating banyo at hugasan ng kamay. Unahin muna natin ang mga footprints. Siguraduhing malinis at tuyo ang sahig kung saan ididikit ang stickers. Tapos, iposisyon ang mga footprint stickers mula sa banyo papunta sa hugasan ng kamay at idikit ito. Ngayon naman, pumunta tayo sa hugasan ng kamay. Linisan muna ang lugar na ito at patuyuin. Tignan kung nasaan ang lagayan ng sabon. Idikit ang araw sa ibabaw nito at siguraduhing nakaturo sa lagayan ng sabon ang araw. Para sa pagdikit ng mata, tignan kung saan dapat tumitingin ang mga bata habang naghuhugas ng kamay. Ito ay maaaring sa ibabaw ng gripo o imbakan ng tubig. Doon idikit ang sticker ng mata sa eye level o kalibel na mata ng mga bata. Kung mukhang madaling matanggal ang mga sticker ng mata at araw, patungan ito ng clear na scotch tape para kumapit. Ang huli nating ikakabit ay ang poster. Kung nasa labas ng banyo ang hugasan ng kamay, maaari itong idikit sa likod ng pinto para makita ng mga bata bago sila lumabas. Kung nasa loob ng banyo ang lababo o hugasan ng kamay, idikit ito sa pader na kaharap ng inidoro o toilet kung saan madali itong makita ng mga bata pagkatapos nilang gumamit ng inidoro. Ayan! Kumpleto na ang nudges natin sa bahay! Hanggat maaari, ipinapayo namin na ikabit ng kumpleto ang 4 na nudges na mata, arrow, footprints, at poster dahil ang 4 na ito ng sama-sama ay napatunayang epektibo nung inilagay bilang isang set sa mga paaralan. O, diba? Marami na tayong natutunan at nag-enjoy pa! Ah! Ang saya! Ngayong alam na natin kung bakit importante ang paghuhugas ng kamay at kailan dapat ginagawa ito, alamin naman natin ang wastong paraan ng paghuhugas nito. Tara mga bata, samahan niyo ako sa susunod na aktibidad na ito. Tumayo tayo at sabihin natin ang salitang bilog. 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 Bilog! Pagkatapos, stretch ang ating mga kamay ng ganito at gumuhit ng maliliit na bilog. Magaling! Ngayon naman, malalaking bilog! Mahusay! Ngayon, tumingin sa paligid. Anong mga bilog na bagay ang nakikita ninyo? Ituro nyo nga. Tama! Ang lahat yan ay mga bilog na bagay. Alam nyo ba kung ano pa ang bilog? Ang mga bula sa sabon. Di ba kapag binabasa at kinukuskus natin ang sabon, may nakikita tayong mga bilog na bula? Alam nyo ba na ang paggawa ng maraming bula ay kailangan para sa wastong paghuhugas ng kamay? Ngayon, alamin natin kung paano ang wastong paraan para maghugas ng kamay. Pagmasdan ang mga bilog na bula habang ginagawa ito. Una, basain ang mga kamay. Tapos, sabunin at pabulain. Kuskusin ang mga kamay ng 20 segundo. Banlawan ang mga kamay. Patuyuin sa hangin. Nakita nyo ba ang mga bula? Importante ang paghuhugas ng may tubig at sabon para masigurong matanggal natin ang mga mikrobyo. Tandaan, pag malinis ang kamay, sakit ay goodbye! Ngayon naman, pakinggan natin ang mensahe ni Secretary Leonor Briones ng Department of Education tungkol sa paghuhugas ng kamay.
Magandang araw sa ating lahat. Taon-taon, tuwing Oktubre, ipinagdiriwang ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon ang Global Hand Washing Day sa ating mga paaralan. Kadalasan, marami tayong mga ginagawa, mga programa, mga activities para talagang ipaunawa sa ating mga kabataan ang kahalagahan ng paghuhugas ng kamay. Inaanyayahan ko ang ating mga mag-aaral, magulang at mga guro na gawing habit o automatic maging kagawian itong paghuhugas ng kamay para mapanatili ang kalusugan ng mga bata. Isa itong halimbawa kung paano maipagpatuloy ang pag-aaral at pagkakaroon ng bagong kaalaman ang ating mga learners kahit may pandemya at wala sila sa ating mga pisikal na paaralan. Ipagpatuloy ang paghuhugas ng kamay. Walang bata na kailangang maiwan, walang bata na kailangan tumigil sa pag-aaral dahil ang kagawaran ng edukasyon ay nakahanda upang tuparin ang paniniwalang ito. Tandaan natin na ang handang isip, handang bukas.
Tuwing October ginagawa ang Global Hand Washing Day. Pero ang paghuhugas ng kamay dapat gawin araw-araw at tuwing kailangan. Lagi nating isaisip ang gawaing ito para makatulong tayo hindi lang sa pagpigil ng COVID-19, kundi ng iba pang sakit na pwede nating makuha mula sa ating mga kamay. Dahil ang handang isip, handa bukas!
Sa mga panahong ito, ayun, malapit ng July, dapat ng mga bata nasa classroom na nag-aaral, masaya, inihahatid ng mga magulang, but all these things at this point in time, wala.
Na kung saan sumalakay sa atin ang COVID-19 disease.
Paano enrollment? Paano pag-aaral? Sinong tutulong sa amin? These are worries. Very normal to parents like us. Paano ng mga batang to?
Gusto po namin i-remind ang mga ating mahal na magulang na sila po ay magtiwala sa Department of Education.
At wag po tayong magpatalo na because of this pandemic, ihinto po ang pag-aaral ng ating mga anak.
Ginagawa po namin yung lahat ng aming makakaya para na sa ganon ay tuloy-tuloy po ang enrollment po ng mga estudyante po. Gumagamit po kami ng mga Learner Enrollment and Survey Form o yung tinatawag nating LESF para na sa ganon makapag-fill up na po yung mga magulang na wala pong access pagdating po sa internet.
Para doon sa coordination namin sa mga stakeholders, particularly doon po sa pagbibigay ng mga learners enrollment and survey form, pumupunta po kami by barangay.
Yung boxes na dinala sa mga barangay hall, na yung mga hindi nakapag-enroll ngayon ng online, doon ngayon idinadrop yung mga enrollment form ng mga bata. At ang gagawin ng barangay, dadalhin ngayon sa school. At yung mga schools ang magkukolekt.
Masasabi namin na kami ay may kahandaan sa mga iba-ibang modality na gagamitin natin dahil hindi nga pwede ang face-to-face instruction.
Doon sa online ay nahihirapan po sila. So meron naman tayong tinatawag na modular.
Kami po sa DepEd ay hindi tumitigil kung paano namin may pagpatuloy ang edukasyon ng inyong mga anak. Kaya po, magtiwala lamang po tayo sa DepEd.
Thank you sa DepEd kasi kahit nasa pandemic tayo.
Marami naman po paraan na makapagpatuloy ang ating pag-aaral sa ating mga kabataan.
ang ating kalusugan, ang ating safety, ang binabalanse natin.
Kami ay nananawagan. Alam namin na ang prosesong ito walang sapilitan. Ang prosesong ito ng enrollment ay ang final decision ay nasa parents, nasa guardians, at saka sa mga bata mismo. By the way, marami din kaming requests ng mga bata mismo na nagpapadala ng mensahe sa Secretary of Education na nagsasabing gusto ko nang mag-aral, gusto ko nang bumalik sa school, gusto ko nang ipagpatuloy ang aking learnings. Mga bata mismo ang nagsasabi. Sa mga lugar na kung halimbawa sobrang dami na sila at saka umaapaw na sa mga kota ang mga batang i-enroll, maraming parents na nakikiusap, pwede bang i-accommodate yung aming anak? Pwede bang i-accommodate yung aming apo? Kaya kami ay nakikinig sa mga pananawagan ito ng mga parents. At kami din sa DepEd, nanawagan din sa mga parents. Kayo ang magdedesisyon, sa inyo ang desisyon, nasa inyong kamay ang kinabukasan ng inyong learners. Maraming salamat.
The year 2020 brought new beginnings for the Department of Education. Ready to pivot towards attaining quality education, DepEd was hopeful of the challenges ahead of it. But as DepEd continued to work on its commitment, the world suddenly faced a steeper dilemma. Around the globe, countries like the Philippines had to shift their priorities to respond to a public health crisis brought by COVID-19. Schools had to be closed, activities had to be halted, graduation ceremonies had to be canceled, as people were urged to stay at home. A new normal dawned upon us. As soon as DepEd realized the impact of these disruptions in education, it began to proactively craft its learning continuity plan last April to ensure that learning opportunities will still be available. Consulting with partners and advisors through the Education Forum, as well as legislators, teachers, parents, learners, and the general public, DepEd made sure its LCP encompasses the concerns of the whole education sector in responding to the crisis. Its topmost priority being the protection of the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. To make informed decisions, DepEd first analyzed relevant data and epidemiological picture for the incoming school year. DepEd also issued guidelines on its required health standards to be adopted in all public and private schools and DepEd offices following DOH and IATF protocols. It covers 4 COVID-19 mitigation objectives, namely, to increase physical and mental resilience, reduce transmission, reduce contact, and reduce duration of infection. The LCP also outlined how learning continuity will be ensured. It streamlines the K-12 curriculum into the most essential learning competencies and allows the use of distance learning, homeschooling, and blended learning modalities. Since conducting face-to-face classes will be a risk in most areas, DepEd has anchored its delivery of education to modular, online, TV and radio, or a combination of all. Guided by teachers, modular learning will allow learners to use self-learning modules in a format applicable to learners' capacity. In online distance learning, teachers will facilitate and engage learners' participation through the internet, whether synchronous or asynchronous. TV and radio-based instructions, on the other hand, are converted lessons fit for the broadcast medium. The LCP assures that all our learners, including our SPED, ALS, Madrasa students, can still access education even within the confines of their homes, and ensures that their household capacity will not hinder their right to education. To make this possible, our joint Brigada Eskwela and Oplan Balik Eskwela is assisting the preparations for the rollout of the LCP. On May 8, the LCP was approved by the IATF. The President also gave it his full support and expressed his commitment to meeting the financial demands of its execution. The implementation of the LCP will not be easy. It is not a perfect plan, and complications can be expected along the way. But extraordinary times call for extraordinary and proactive measures, and the Department of Education is ready to address the challenges along the way with the help of our national and local government, partners, parents, and learners. As one nation, learning opportunities shall be available in this brave new world for our Filipino children. The child embodies our ultimate vision, that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Ang bayan ko'y tanging ikaw, Pilipinas kong mahal, ang puso ko at buhay man sa iyo'y ibibigay. Tungkulin kong gagampanan na lagi kang paglingkuran, ang laya mo'y papantayan, Pilipinas kong hirang. Ang bayan ko'y tanging ikaw, Pilipinas kong mahal, ang puso ko at buhay man sa iyo'y ibibigay. Tungkulin kong gagampanan na lagi kang paglingkuran, ang laya mo'y babantayan, Pilipinas kong hirang. Ang laya Paskong